They built cities without cranes, carved temples without iron, charted the stars without telescopes, and then they vanished. Across the world, ruins persist. Monoliths of stone are consumed by the jungle. Empty roads lead nowhere, and silent temples stand, their deities unresponsive. Who were these once flourishing people who raised empires from dust only to dissolve into it? Answers are fragmented, found in half-buried artifacts, lost texts, and narratives passed through generations. Some succumbed to conquest, others to famine or flood, but a select few left no trace of their demise. No conflict, no plague, no clear cause. The questions resonate more loudly than the ruins themselves. What truly befell the Kukutani Tripilia, who burned their settlements each generation? Why did the Cahokian people abandon their vast city? And what led to the sudden silence of the Nabateans, masters of desert stone? These are history's enigmas. Tonight we follow their paths into the shadows of the past. So settle in and journey into the forgotten realm of ancient civilizations that simply vanished. Eridu, the first city. In the scorched plains of southern Mesopotamia, where the Tigris and Euphrates once cradled the world's earliest cities, a quiet, broken land lies still. Sand drifts over low mounds and forgotten ruins, the only sound a dry wind weaving through the skeletal remnants of mud brick walls. Here, beneath layers of time and sediment, rests the phantom of Eridu, arguably the oldest city in human history. Eridu, the name echoes from a time before history began. According to ancient Sumerian records, this was the inaugural city founded by the gods. The Sumerian king list, a mix of myth and chronicle, places Eridu at its pinnacle. After the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. Long before Babylon, before Ur or Akkad, there was Eridu, its temples rising from marshland, its ziggurat dedicated to Enki, deity of wisdom, water, and magic. Yet today, Eridu is dust. How could the very birthplace of civilization, the supposed origin of kingship, architecture, and myth, simply disappear? What could drive the first city into oblivion? Archaeological digs at Eridu, near modern Tel Abu Shahin in Iraq, reveal 18 successive temple layers, one atop the other. Each new layer was a reconstruction of Enki's temple, built over the last. This practice, spanning centuries, points to a city of profound cultural continuity, of sacred perseverance. But around 600 BC, the record ceases. No more rebuilding, no final destruction layer, only abandonment. Why? The common explanation is environmental. Eridu, like many early Mesopotamian cities, depended heavily on nearby marshlands and riverine currents. Over centuries, the climate changed. The water receded, transforming fertile wetlands into arid land. The nearby Euphrates shifted course, leaving Eridu without its lifeblood. As the city's strategic and agricultural worth diminished, its inhabitants may have gradually migrated to more hospitable regions, leaving their ancient capital not in violence or fear, but with resignation. Yet even this calm disappearance raises unsettling questions. Why would a city so sacred, so steeped in ritual and divine lore, be so readily forsaken? Why no ceremonial farewell, no final tribute in the tablets or texts of neighboring cities? Some scholars propose a shift in political influence. Eridu, once dominant, was eventually eclipsed by cities like Uruk and Ur. As trade routes changed and dynasties rose and fell, Eridu's importance may have simply eroded. Kings directed their attention elsewhere. Pilgrims stopped coming, priests abandoned their duties, and over time Enki's holy site was reduced to an empty ziggurat, crumbling under sun and silence. But this narrative of slow decay doesn't satisfy everyone. Some fringe theorists propose more unconventional ideas. Could Eridu's decline be part of a deliberate erasure? After all, Sumerian myths often mention divine retribution, cities flooded or cursed by the gods. Was there something about Eridu, its rituals, its secrets, that later rulers sought to bury? Others point to the mythology surrounding Enki himself. As the god of deep waters and hidden knowledge, Enki was both revered and feared. His temple, the Iazu, was believed to sit above the subterranean waters of wisdom and chaos. Could there have been some event, a flood, a sinkhole, a symbolic catastrophe, that rendered the site spiritually forbidden? And then there are those who question if Eridu was ever meant to survive. In some interpretations of Sumerian cosmology, Eridu wasn't just the first city, it was a prototype, a divine model destined to fade once its blueprint was cast. In this view, its disappearance wasn't failure, but fulfillment. Still, despite the theories, one fact remains. Eridu existed. It rose from the marshes, thrived for over 4,000 years, and then vanished. What remains is eerily still. Satellite images reveal a faint outline of walls and the square core of the ancient ziggurat. Scattered pottery shards hint at lives once lived here. Priests, farmers, scribes, children. But no tombs of kings, no inscriptions of downfall, no record of war or famine, only silence. Was it a quiet end, a slow demise from thirst, or something more deliberate, an intentional fading from civilization's story? We may never know. The desert winds do not speak. The ruins lie flat and low, as if time itself has chosen to forget. Yet in that forgetting, something stirs, a question that persists. If the world's first city can vanish without a trace, what else have we already lost? What else lies buried beneath our feet, awaiting rediscovery? And so the mystery of Eridu endures, quiet, unresolved, and profoundly human. Dilmun, the paradise land. As the morning mist lifts from the shimmering waters of the Persian Gulf, a chain of low, sun-drenched islands emerges, tranquil and understated. Today, this is the modern kingdom of Bahrain. But millennia ago, this peaceful landscape was something entirely different. To the ancients, it was the heart of a land both real and mythical, a place called Dilmun. According to the oldest Sumerian texts, Dilmun was more than a city. It was paradise, a land untouched by sickness or death, where gods once walked among mortals. The tale of Enki and Ninhursag describes Dilmun as pure and sacred, blessed, abundant, and free from sorrow. It was here, the myths say, that life began. But Dilmun wasn't merely legend, it was real. Archaeological evidence centered around Bahrain's Khalat al-Bahrain and extending into parts of eastern Saudi Arabia and Kuwait reveals a civilization deeply connected to the sea and trade. By approximately 3000 BC, Dilmun had become a vital hub in the ancient world, linking the powerful Mesopotamian city-states with the distant Indus Valley. Copper from Oman's mountains, precious stones, timber, and exotic goods all passed through Dilmun's harbors. It grew wealthy not through conquest but through connection, thriving at the crossroads of continents and cultures. Its influence is evident in ancient seals bearing distinctive imagery, in burial mounds scattered across the desert, and in temple ruins built with a precision suggesting both engineering skill and spiritual purpose. Hundreds of thousands of burial mounds, some modest, others vast and elaborate, still dot northern Bahrain, silent witnesses to a complex society that honored its dead with care and ceremony. And yet, despite its prosperity and prominence, Dilmun disappeared. By the end of the first millennium BC, its name fades from written records. Trade diminishes, monumental burial practices cease, temples are no longer rebuilt. A once flourishing civilization recedes into history's background, leaving only scattered remnants and half-forgotten myths. Why? One explanation points to shifting trade dynamics. As new powers arose in Mesopotamia and Persia, and maritime routes adapted to changing priorities, the Gulf may have lost its central importance. Ports that had once been busy with merchants and goods became quiet. Without the constant flow of commerce, Dilmun's economic lifeline may have simply withered. Others cite internal decline, possibly driven by overextension, political fragmentation, or dynastic struggles. A civilization built on balance might not have required a catastrophe to collapse. A slow, gradual erosion could have sufficed. Communities may have migrated inland, been absorbed by rising empires, or simply left as opportunities elsewhere dwindled. But even these explanations feel incomplete. For a land described as divine, its exit from the world stage is remarkably quiet. There are no records of conquest, no signs of destruction, no laments carved into stone. Dilmun's disappearance feels more like a vanishing act than a fall. Could its sacred image have worked against it? Some historians speculate that as Dilmun's religious significance waned, so too did its perceived importance. As temples lost centrality and deities associated with the land faded from worship, the need to preserve or remember Dilmun may have diminished. In time, memory yielded to myth, the real place became a story, and the story became a symbol. Others suggest that Dilmun may not have been a single unified civilization, but rather a network of coastal communities bound by trade and belief. If so, its disappearance may not have been a collapse, but a slow merging into the larger cultures that surrounded it. In this view, Dilmun didn't end. It was simply absorbed. And then there are the more speculative ideas. Some fringe researchers propose that Dilmun's mythic aspects hint at lost knowledge, rituals, or beliefs so sacred that later civilizations deliberately concealed them. Others go further, wondering if Dilmun's association with divine origins and purity was rooted in something deeper. An ancient center of knowledge or spiritual practice that left few traces because it was never meant to be found. Even the burial mounds pose questions. Why so many? Why such consistency in design over generations? Were they solely funerary or something more? And what of the sea? Some believe rising water levels or changing tides may have gradually submerged important parts of the Dilmun heartland. Harbors might have silted up, islands could have eroded or shifted. Over centuries, even subtle environmental changes might have altered the coastline enough to isolate once thriving settlements. But no dramatic evidence of flood or disaster has been found. Perhaps that's what makes Dilmun so elusive. It didn't burn, it didn't fall, it faded. Today its ruins lie quiet beneath the dust and stone of modern life. The burial fields, the temples, the sea-washed foundations of old harbors. They wait in silence. And still the myths linger. A land where no one grew old, a land where pain did not exist, a land now forgotten. Was Dilmun a real place crowned in myth, or a myth grounded in fleeting reality? The question remains unanswered, the mystery unresolved. And as we continue this journey through civilizations that vanished without a trace, one truth echoes clearly. The past is not gone. It is merely waiting, buried just beneath the surface. Harla, the city of giants. As the wind sweeps across the highlands of eastern Ethiopia, it whispers through the jagged hills and overgrown ruins of a forgotten world. The air here is thin, dry, and ancient, scented with dust and mystery. Scattered among the stones are fragments of walls, broken pottery, collapsed tombs, and the remains of once proud structures. These are the ruins of Harla, the so-called city of giants. Far from the deserts of Mesopotamia or the shores of the Persian Gulf, Harla's story feels different, isolated, quiet, but no less compelling. For nestled deep within the Horn of Africa lies the ghost of a kingdom that once flourished, traded, built, and thrived before vanishing without a clear trace. Who were the Harla? According to local traditions, they were a powerful, advanced people known for their skill in stonework and their mysterious disappearance. Oral histories speak of them with reverence and fear. Some believe they were giants, others that they possessed knowledge lost to time. Whatever the truth, archaeological evidence depicts a sophisticated urban society that existed between the 6th and 15th centuries AD. The ruins around Harla, near Eridu, have yielded clues: intricately carved tombs, elaborate mosques, fortified walls, and imported ceramics from Persia, India, and even China. These findings suggest that Harla was more than an isolated town. It was a node in a vast trading network spanning the Red Sea and Indian Ocean, a place where African, Arab, and Asian cultures met, and where wealth and influence flowed through markets and caravan routes. And yet, despite all this, Harla disappeared. No written records explaining why survive, no known annals document its decline. There are no tales of conquest, no evidence of cataclysm. One day it seems the city was there, and the next it wasn't. Mainstream archaeologists propose gradual abandonment. As trade routes shifted and new powers like the Sultanate of Ifat and later the Adal Sultanate rose in the region, Harla may have been left behind, its influence diminished, its people absorbed. Political shifts, resource depletion, or migration might have slowly drained its vitality, leaving the city vulnerable to time and decay. But this explanation raises its own questions. Why was there no continuation of settlement nearby? No transition to a successor city? Why were some structures left incomplete, as if work suddenly halted? Why does Harla hold such an important place in oral lore, more as myth than memory? Some suggest disease could have played a role, an epidemic sweeping through the population, forcing abandonment. Others theorize that Harla may have suffered internal collapse, perhaps social unrest or conflict with neighboring groups. But so far, there is little concrete evidence to support either idea. And then there are the legends. For centuries, local communities have referred to the site as built by giants. Enormous stone blocks used in Harla's construction do seem disproportionate, unusual for the region. Could the people of Harla have developed advanced engineering techniques now lost? Or is this the language of myth, a way for later generations to explain something they couldn't understand? In some traditions, the Harla are said to have angered divine forces, bringing ruin upon themselves. In others, they are described as vanishing into the earth, swallowed by the land they once ruled. These stories, while not historical, echo a recurring pattern at ancient sites. When a culture disappears too completely, legend rushes in to fill the void. One particularly intriguing aspect of Harla is its architecture. Some tombs feature dome chambers and intricate inscriptions. Others contain layered burials, suggesting not only local customs, but foreign influence or multicultural integration. A few artifacts even show connections with early Islamic civilizations, raising the possibility that Harla was part of a religious and economic network far beyond Ethiopia's borders. If so, what caused this network to collapse? And why was Harla, a seemingly thriving, well-connected city, left to the wilds? It's worth noting that much of Harla's story remains untold. Excavations have only recently begun in earnest. Many structures are still buried beneath centuries of earth. Tombs remain sealed. Entire city quarters are unexplored. Harla's silence isn't necessarily final. It may simply be incomplete. But until more answers surface, the mystery persists. A city of trade suddenly still, a people of legend suddenly gone. Stones shaped by unknown hands standing in a land that has forgotten their names. Did the Harla vanish quietly as empires shifted? Or did something more profound, more elusive, lead to their disappearance? The ruins do not speak, but they endure. And perhaps in the patterns of their silence, something waits to be found. As we move from the lost city of Harla to the next civilization swallowed by time, one thought lingers. How many more worlds lie just beneath the dust, waiting to remind us that even the grandest societies can fade into whispers? Zhangzhung, the kingdom of the sky watchers. High in the wind-swept expanse of the western Tibetan plateau, where air grows thin and silence stretches for miles, jagged cliffs loom over ancient stones. Here, amid desolate valleys and sacred peaks, the bones of a forgotten kingdom lie buried in shadow. Walls of mud brick and rock crumble against the sky. Broken fortresses cling to mountainsides, their watchtowers staring across an empty landscape. This is the land of Zhangzhung, one of Asia's least understood civilizations, one that vanished with barely a trace. Before Tibet became the spiritual heartland of Buddhism, before monasteries dotted the cliffs and prayer flags fluttered across mountain passes, the kingdom of Zhangzhung ruled these lands. Mysterious, remote, and shrouded in legend, it flourished in western Tibet and parts of the Himalayas from around 1500 BC, perhaps earlier. Its people developed a culture rooted in ritual, astronomy, and a deep connection with the surrounding mountains. Zhangzhung's heart was believed to be sacred Mount Kailash, a site still revered by Buddhists, Hindus, Jains, and followers of the ancient Bon religion. In Zhangzhung tradition, Kailash wasn't just a mountain, it was the axis of the world, a celestial pillar connecting heaven and earth. And at its base, the capital city of Kyunglung is said to have once thrived, with palaces carved into cliffs and stone temples aligned to the stars' movements. But almost nothing remains of Kyunglung. Its name lingers in texts, its walls lie in ruins, and the kingdom it governed has vanished. What happened to Zhangzhung? Historically, we know that by the 7th century AD, Zhangzhung was conquered by the rising Tibetan Empire under Songtsen Gampo. The Bon religion, deeply rooted in Zhangzhung culture, was gradually replaced or absorbed by Tibetan Buddhism. Political control shifted, fortresses were abandoned, temples collapsed, and over time the name Zhangzhung disappeared from chronicles. But that's only part of the story. Archaeological evidence is scarce and scattered. The harsh terrain, extreme altitude, and centuries of erosion have buried much of Zhangzhung beneath layers of time and silence. What we do know comes from ancient manuscripts, oral traditions, and a few fragile architectural remnants. Texts written in the lost Zhangzhung script describe rituals, cosmology, and kings whose names are barely pronounceable today, but they offer little concrete history. Some researchers believe the kingdom's fall wasn't merely military. The collapse of trade routes between Central Asia and the Indian subcontinent may have left the highland society isolated. Without access to goods, ideas, or alliances, it may have slowly withered, losing influence long before its final annexation. Others suggest internal decline, harsh climate, resource scarcity, or even spiritual disillusionment may have weakened the kingdom from within. The high-altitude plateau, though majestic, is unforgiving. Agriculture is limited. Winters brutal. Survival requires more than faith. Yet even these explanations don't fully account for the near-total disappearance of such a once powerful civilization. Why was so little preserved? Why do ruins seem so few, records so fragmented? Why do we know so much about those who came after and so little about those who came before? That's where the mystery deepens. In Bon tradition, Zhangzhung isn't just a historical kingdom. It's the birthplace of sacred knowledge. Some adherents claim it was home to ancient wisdom far older than recorded history, rituals involving breath, energy, and consciousness predating Tibetan Buddhism by centuries, perhaps millennia. According to these beliefs, Zhangzhung's disappearance wasn't defeat but transformation. The outer kingdom collapsed, but inner teachings endured. Some legends go further, speaking of hidden valleys and underground cities, secret sanctuaries where Zhangzhung sages preserved their knowledge away from invading armies. Mythical lands like Shambhala, said to lie somewhere beyond the snow peaks, may have roots in these ancient traditions. Were these metaphors or coded references to undiscovered places? Other, more speculative theories suggest Zhangzhung's alignment with celestial events. Its temples built to mirror star movements may hint at a society far more advanced in astronomical understanding than previously believed. Some researchers propose the kingdom's sudden disappearance could be linked to a cosmic event, an eclipse, a comet, or a change in sky patterns, interpreted as an omen prompting mass migration or ritual abandonment. There are even those who wonder if Zhangzhung's fall wasn't a loss but a decision, a quiet retreat from a world no longer in harmony, a civilization that chose to dissolve rather than be conquered, to vanish into mountains and legends rather than be rewritten by history. Today, what little remains is mostly hidden: crumbling walls, isolated cave complexes, manuscripts buried in remote monasteries. Pilgrims still circle Mount Kailash with reverence, unaware that beneath their feet may lie the ruins of a lost capital. And Bon practitioners, carrying the last echoes of Zhangzhung's voice, continue their rituals quietly, as they have for generations. Was Zhangzhung simply absorbed by a rising empire, or was there something more, something sacred, secret, and forgotten? As we step away from the silent ruins of this mountain kingdom and continue our search for civilizations swallowed by time, one question lingers in the high, cold air. What if some cultures didn't disappear but chose to hide? Vijayanagara, the ghost of an empire. In the rocky heartlands of southern India, where boulders tower like monuments shaped by ancient gods, a forgotten city lies scattered across the plains. Stone temples rise from the earth like frozen echoes of devotion. Colossal pillars stand in silence, their intricate carvings weathered by centuries of wind and rain. Granite elephants, broken yet proud, guard abandoned courtyards. This is Hampi, the ghost of Vijayanagara, once among the richest, most dazzling empires the world had seen. At its peak in the 15th and 16th centuries AD, the Vijayanagara Empire was a marvel of urban planning, culture, and power. Stretching across most of South India, it stood as a bulwark against northern invasions, a defender of regional identity, and a beacon of wealth and scholarship. Foreign travelers from Persia, Portugal, and beyond described its capital as breathtaking, its markets bustling with precious stones, its palaces glittering under the sun, and its temples echoing with sacred chants. And yet today it lies in ruin, vast, empty, and still. What happened to Vijayanagara? The empire's fall, according to historical records, was swift. In 1565 AD, a coalition of Deccan sultanates defeated the empire's forces at the Battle of Talikota. The loss was catastrophic. Within days, victorious armies descended upon the capital. What followed wasn't merely conquest, it was obliteration. Hampi was looted, burned, and left in smoldering devastation. The city that once sparkled with gold and gemstones became a graveyard of stone. That at least is the accepted narrative. But like many historical endings, this one raises more questions than it answers. Was a single defeat enough to erase an empire of such scale and complexity? Why did no significant attempt arise to rebuild the capital or reclaim its former glory? And why, after its fall, did Vijayanagara disappear not just physically, but culturally, politically, almost spiritually, from the subcontinent's memory? The ruins themselves offer few answers. Spread across over 25 kilometers, Hampi is a vast, open-air puzzle. Temples still stand, dedicated to gods once worshipped by emperors and peasants alike. Aqueducts and canals trace the ingenuity of forgotten engineers. Market streets, though silent, hint at trade that once rivaled the greatest cities of the time. And yet, there are no signs of reconstruction, no indication of prolonged resistance or survival. It's as if, after centuries of splendor, the empire simply turned to dust. Some historians argue that Vijayanagara was too centralized around its capital. Once Hampi fell, the administrative heart was gone. The political structure couldn't adapt. Without a capital, the empire had no anchor, and remaining regions quickly fragmented under pressure from local rivals and foreign powers. Others see a more gradual decline beginning even before the battle. Shifting alliances, court intrigue, and internal divisions may have weakened the empire from within. In this view, the battle was not the cause of collapse, but its final blow. And then there are the subtler theories. Some suggest Vijayanagara's fall was not merely a military or political failure, but a spiritual one. The empire had long portrayed itself as divinely sanctioned, its rulers seen as protectors of dharma and sacred order. The sacking of Hampi wasn't just a loss, it was a cosmic rupture. In its people's minds, the sacred geography had been desecrated. Rebuilding might have been seen not as restoration, but as sacrilege. There are even stories, quiet ones passed down in villages and old texts, hinting at retreat rather than defeat, that the empire's core traditions, knowledge, and perhaps even leaders were not destroyed, but concealed. Some believe secret enclaves preserve Vijayanagara's teachings, rituals, and spirit in hidden corners of the south, not in marble and monuments, but in memory, language, and lineage. And as with so many ruins, myth seeps into the stones. Locals speak of hidden chambers beneath temples, of buried treasures cursed to protect secrets, of tunnels deep beneath the earth where voices still echo at night. Most dismiss these as legends, but like the empire itself, they endure, half remembered, half believed. Today Hampi is a haunting landscape. The silence here isn't empty. It hums with something unresolved. The wind carries the weight of stories never fully told. Walking among fallen pillars and weathered shrines, you can almost feel time hesitate, as if the city isn't truly gone, but waiting. Waiting for what? Perhaps for someone to see it not just as a ruin, but as a question. How does an empire that ruled millions, cultivated art, music, science, and philosophy, vanish so completely in days? And what truths might still lie buried beneath the stones, silent, undisturbed, watching? As we move on from Vijayanagara's sun-baked ruins to the next lost world, one mystery remains. Can greatness ever truly vanish? Or does it only sleep beneath ruins we've yet to understand? The Zenata, whispers from the islands. Off the northwest coast of Africa, where volcanic cliffs rise dramatically from the Atlantic and winds whisper through barren lava plains, lies an archipelago both beautiful and haunted. These are the Canary Islands, sun-drenched today, but once the cradle of a lost culture. In Tenerife's remote highlands and Gran Canaria's shadowed ravines, traces linger, caves carved into cliffs, petroglyphs etched in stone, silent burial mounds. These are echoes of the Zenata people, an ancient civilization that vanished long before the world learned to remember them. Before the 15th century Spanish conquest, the Canary Islands were home to indigenous cultures of uncertain origin. Among them were the Zenata, believed to be among the archipelago's earliest inhabitants. Most of what we know comes from Tenerife, where their descendants were later called the Guanches. But long before these final chapters, the Zenata had built a deeply enigmatic society. Who were they? Some archaeologists link the Zenata to North African Berber populations. Linguistic similarities between ancient Canarian words and Tamazight dialects suggest a prehistoric migration, perhaps by seafaring peoples or island-hopping shepherds from the Atlas Mountains. Yet how these early settlers reached the Canaries, isolated by hundreds of kilometers of open ocean, remains a mystery. Were they driven by exploration, exile, or something more spiritual? Once here, the Zenata developed a life shaped by the island's extremes. They lived in caves and stone huts, herded goats, harvested wild plants, and crafted pottery marked with geometric designs. Their society was organized into clans, their spiritual life centered on mountain worship, and ancestor reverence, and celestial observation. They mummified their dead with care, burying them in high mountain caves as if placing them closer to the sky. But for all their resourcefulness, they left no written records and no clear explanation for what happened next. By the time the first European ships approached the Canary Islands in the 14th century, much of what might have been Zenata culture had already fragmented. Some islands showed population decline. On others, entire settlements were abandoned. The people who remained, clinging to ancient rituals and oral traditions, spoke of a time when ancestors lived and ruled differently, as if a deeper historical layer had already faded. Why? Mainstream historians suggest isolation and internal pressures caused decline long before foreign contact. The islands, while partly fertile, are volatile, marked by volcanic eruptions, droughts, and scarce resources. Over time, overgrazing or resource depletion could have strained communities. Inter-island conflict may have fractured alliances, cutting off support between groups once bound by blood and belief. But this only explains so much. Why do so many burial sites remain untouched, their structures undisturbed for centuries? Why do the carvings, strange symbols, spirals, star-like patterns, appear in places with no clear ritual function? And how did a people with no known boat-building tradition reach one of the most isolated island chains in the Atlantic? Some theories stretch further. Fringe researchers have long speculated about pre-Phoenician or even pre-Egyptian voyages to the Canaries. Ancient maps from classical Greece and Rome describe fortunate isles far beyond the Pillars of Hercules, lands blessed by nature untouched by time. Could these be distant memories of Zenata homelands, or distorted echoes of travelers who encountered them? Others point to mythic connections. Berber folklore abounds with tales of a mysterious western land, ruled by tall, light-eyed people skilled in old ways. Could the Zenata have preserved a pocket of ancient culture long forgotten on the mainland? Or were they themselves survivors of an earlier disappearance, clinging to a fading world's last outpost? One enduring puzzle lies in their funerary customs. The Zenata practiced mummification, a trait shared with few cultures outside Egypt and the Andes. Their unique methods involved drying bodies with volcanic ash, wrapping them in skins and mats, and placing them in remote sealed cave tombs. These practices suggest spiritual depth and knowledge of preservation rare in prehistoric island societies. Why go to such lengths? What did death mean to them? Some believe these customs were tied to cosmology, that death was a transition into a mountain or a star. Others see echoes of beliefs that once stretched across continents, traces of an ancient philosophy largely forgotten. Today, the Zenata name survives only in fragments, in local myths, museum labels, faint, undeciphered inscriptions. The people themselves and their culture have long faded into time's folds. Their cave homes are empty, sacred sites overgrown, their story largely untold. Yet the land remembers. Mountains still hold the dead's bones. Wind still whistles through ancient stone. Carved basalt symbols remain as cryptic as ever, silent but not erased. What drove the Zenata to these islands? And what caused their world to vanish, not with battle or fire, but a whisper? As we leave Tenerife's lonely cliffs and continue through forgotten civilization's shadows, one final thought echoes in the surf. Sometimes the most profound disappearances leave no ruin, only questions carved in stone. Giraffe, the mystery of the Halil River Valley. In the baking heat of southeastern Iran, where the Halil River carves a winding path through an arid landscape of dust and stone, an ancient silence lingers just beneath the earth. Here, among parched plains and forgotten foothills of the Zagros Mountains, fragments of a lost world have surfaced. Strange stone vessels carved with animal forms and mythical beings, towering mounds concealing entire cities, and beneath it all, whispers of a civilization predating the written histories of Sumer, Elam, and Akkad. This is Giraffe, one of the ancient world's most tantalizing archaeological enigmas. Until the early 2000s, Giraffe was little more than a name, a modest region in Kerman province largely overlooked by mainstream archaeology. That changed when floods unearthed thousands of artifacts, attracting locals, looters, and eventually scientists. What they discovered wasn't just relics, but the faint outline of a forgotten civilization. The artifacts were unlike anything seen before. Finely carved chlorite vessels, some depicting half-human, half-animal hybrids, others etched with unknown symbols. Architectural remains hinted at monumental structures and a vast organized society possibly flourishing as early as 3000 BC, rivaling or even predating Mesopotamia in complexity. But Giraffe's real mystery isn't just what was found, it's what was lost. How does an entire civilization of such apparent sophistication disappear so completely from the historical record? Why did no neighboring power mention its rise or fall? And how could a culture capable of large-scale urban planning and artistic mastery leave so few written traces? Mainstream scholars offer tentative answers. Some believe Giraffe may have been part of a larger Elamite cultural sphere, absorbed into regional powers as borders shifted and new kingdoms rose. Others suggest environmental factors like earthquakes or river course changes disrupted life, causing gradual decline and eventual city abandonment. Indeed, the Halil River itself, once vital for agriculture and trade, may have shifted or dried up, leaving unsustainable settlements. In a land dependent on water, even a modest ecological shift could end a thriving society. And yet these explanations don't quite capture the scale of what might have been lost. The more researchers uncover, the more complex Giraffe appears. Some believe an unknown script on a few tablets may be an entirely separate writing system, perhaps older than cuneiform. If true, it suggests Giraffe wasn't merely influenced by neighbors, but an independent cradle of civilization. This possibility sparks broader, more speculative theories. Could Giraffe represent a missing chapter in human history, a culture developing parallel to or even ahead of the Sumerians? Was it a forgotten link from prehistoric settlements to Bronze Age urban centers? If so, what happened to its knowledge, beliefs, people? Some compare Giraffe to legends of lost eastern cities, kingdoms of immense wealth and wisdom swallowed by time. Detailed carvings, fantastical creatures, and apparent reverence for cosmology lead some fringe theorists to connect Giraffe with ancient myths of knowledge passed from forgotten ancestors. Some even speculate Giraffe was a crossroads where Central Asian nomads, Iranian plateau farmers, and early Mesopotamian traders met, exchanged, and inspired each other. If true, Giraffe's ruins may hold clues not only about one civilization, but about the fabric of early human interconnectedness. But despite intrigue, many questions remain. The site is only partially excavated. Early looting stripped artifacts of context, hindering reconstruction and interpretation. Without a deciphered script or comprehensive map, much of Giraffe's story is hidden. Even so, the land seems to remember. Each year, new discoveries emerge. Foundation walls, burial grounds, workshops. The picture clarifies but also complicates. For each answer, a new question arises. What gods did Giraffe's people worship? What language did they speak? Why carve legends into stone? And why, after their effort, did memory of their world fall silent. As the sun sets over dusty plains, casting long shadows across half-buried stones, it's hard not to wonder what lies below, what stories remain untold in southeastern Iran's dry earth. What wisdom was lost when Giraffe disappeared, not with fire or conquest, but quiet fading from time. As we journey from Giraffe's forgotten valleys to the next vanished world, one thought remains. Sometimes the greatest mysteries aren't those we remember, but those we never knew existed. Elam, the kingdom lost to memory. As early morning light breaks over the Khuzestan plains in southwestern Iran, Susa's ruins stir in the heat, mute, fragmented, ancient. Cracked columns rise like fossilized fingers, mud brick walls fade into dust, and beneath these remnants lies the ghost of a civilization older than Persia, older even than Babylon. This was the heart of Elam, one of the world's earliest kingdoms, a cradle of power and innovation barely whispered about in most modern histories. The kingdom of Elam emerged in giant shadows, nestled between Mesopotamia to the west and the Iranian plateau to the east. Elam flourished for millennia, its history stretching back to 2700 BC, perhaps earlier. Its cities, Susa, Anshan, later Madaktu, became centers of trade, metallurgy, and written language. Its kings ruled a rich, resilient people whose artistic and architectural legacy left a quiet but unmistakable mark on ancient civilization. And yet, for all its longevity, Elam's story ends not in glory, but silence. How does a kingdom lasting over 2,000 years, outliving many neighbors, disappear so completely from world memory? Elam was no marginal culture. Its unique language was unrelated to neighboring Semitic or Indo-European tongues. Its writing system evolved from the undeciphered Proto-Elamite script to a more recognizable cuneiform. Elamites developed their own religion, social structure, and diplomacy. They warred with Babylon, influenced the Achaemenid Persians, and were respected and feared by their age's great powers. So what happened? By the 7th century BC, Elam entered terminal decline. Assyrians, in relentless expansion, invaded and sacked Elamite cities. Ashurbanipal's inscriptions boast of Susa's destruction, burned temples, taken idols, and kings dragged in chains. From that moment, Elam largely vanishes from history. Was this the end? Violent conquest from which the kingdom never recovered? That's the dominant view, military defeat and cultural absorption. But even this leaves much unexplained. For a culture as ancient and enduring as Elam, its disappearance's speed and finality seem strange. Conquered peoples often persist, absorbed but not erased. Yet Elamite identity faded almost completely. Its language ceased to be written, its gods fell silent, and cities that once thrived became provincial backwaters or were abandoned. Why? Some historians propose Elam's very uniqueness, language, traditions, isolation, made integration into rising Median and Persian empires harder. As new powers dominated, Elam may have been seen as a relic, respected but obsolete. Over time, its institutions were replaced, elites displaced, memory overwritten. But even this process raises questions. What became of the Elamites themselves? Did they vanish or melt into the vast tapestry of Persian identity, their legacy hidden in plain sight? And what of the still undeciphered Proto-Elamite script? What messages lie within those early signs scratched on clay over 5,000 years ago? Some scholars wonder if Elamites possessed deliberately suppressed or forgotten knowledge or traditions. Their early association with metallurgy and ritual suggests priestly elites, secret rites, and lost cosmologies. Others point to ambiguous origins. Where did Elamites come from? Their language remains an enigma, no clear relatives, no confirmed lineage. Were they remnants of an even older world, a surviving branch of a vanished people? There are even those who see more than ruins in Susa's vast burial grounds and temples. They see traces of a different worldview, one not just defeated but erased. Today, Elam's remnants are buried beneath layers of later empires. The Achaemenids built on their cities, followed by Parthians and Sasanians. In time, the world forgot the kingdom that stood there. Even the name Elam became little more than a biblical footnote, its true history left to fragments and ruins. but the stones still speak, faintly. In Susa's broken halls, on tablets in forgotten vaults, and in the undeciphered marks of Proto-Elamite script, a voice lingers. A people who built, ruled, believed, and endured until they no longer could. What was lost when Elam fell? Not just a kingdom, but a unique thread in human civilization's fabric, one whose pattern we may never fully recover. As we leave Khuzestan's sun-baked plains and journey on, one question hangs in the desert air. If a civilization thriving for 2,000 years can be forgotten, how many more have slipped through history's cracks, waiting to be remembered? Lothal, the ancient dockyard. As dry wind sweeps across Gujarat's salt flats in western India, it stirs a forgotten past dust. Beneath heat haze and silence lie weathered brick walls, precisely laid in geometric alignment. Shallow channels, once guiding water, now lie parched, and in the ruin's heart sits a curious structure, stone-lined, rectangular, eerily preserved. This is Lothal, and what seems a drained basin may be the world's oldest known dockyard. Over 4,000 years ago, Lothal was a thriving port city, one of the vast, enigmatic Indus Valley civilization's southernmost outposts. Strategically located between the Sabarmati River and the Gulf of Cambay, it linked inland settlements to seafaring trade routes stretching to Mesopotamia. Recovered artifacts, carnelian beads, ivory combs, copper tools, etched seals, suggest a cosmopolitan city engaged in commerce, industry, and ritual. But Lothal was more than a trade hub. Its layout points to advanced urban planning. The city was built on a raised platform with separate zones for residences, workshops, and markets. Drainage systems were meticulously engineered. Brick-lined wells provided fresh water. And then there's the dock, an astonishing feat for its time, complete with sluice gates, spillways, and mooring stones. Its presence implies not only maritime knowledge, but a command of hydraulic engineering rare in Bronze Age cultures. Yet this carefully planned, purposefully constructed city did not endure. Around 1900 BC, Lothal began to fade. Trade networks dwindled, structures fell into disrepair, and eventually the city was abandoned, left to sink quietly into alluvial plains, its name and story forgotten for millennia. What caused its decline? One possibility, changing river courses. Geological studies suggest the Sabarmati may have shifted, cutting the dock off from the sea. Silt could have clogged the inlet. Without trade access, Lothal's economic lifeline might have been severed, its decline slow and inevitable, a city strangled by the very landscape that once nourished it. Others point to environmental degradation, overuse of resources, deforestation, or farmland salinization may have reduced the city's ability to support its population. With the broader Indus Valley civilization entering instability, Lothal may have fallen victim to larger regional shifts. But some questions linger. If the dock served ocean-going vessels, where are the ships, anchors, harborside warehouses, remains of a bustling port economy? Was the basin truly a dock or another function? Some researchers propose it was a large irrigation tank or reservoir for dry months. Still others point to the uniform decline across the Indus civilization. Around Lothal's fading, cities like Mohenjo-Daro, Harappa, and Kalibangan were also deserted. No evidence of invasion or widespread violence. Instead, a gradual, almost systemic collapse pattern. Was there prolonged drought, a breakdown in civic organization, or a cultural shift leading people to abandon cities for smaller rural communities? More speculative theories linger. Some fringe voices suggest Indus people, including Lothal's, possessed lost navigation and astronomy knowledge yet to be understood. The city's layout precision, cardinal orientation, and dock sophistication inspire curiosity. Could Lothal represent a deeper ancient science legacy, forgotten not by failure but by design? Another mystery, the undeciphered Indus script on seals and pottery. Do these symbols record trade, rituals, histories, or warnings? Until understood, much of Lothal's story remains silent, buried beneath signs we cannot read. And then, the human element. Despite extensive excavation, few human remains have been found. Was the population small, buried elsewhere, or did they leave en masse for unknown reasons? Today, Lothal's sun-bleached stones sit quietly. Tourists wander, scholars debate, yet the atmosphere holds gravity, a sense this was not just a city, but a portal into a civilization still refusing to fully reveal itself. How could such a meticulously designed city, integrated into global trade, vanish without war, fire, final words? As we leave Lothal's docks and continue through history's lost worlds, a question as unsettling as it is enduring remains. How much of our shared past still sleeps beneath soil, quiet, intact, waiting to be remembered? Silla, the kingdom of golden tombs. In southeastern Korea's misty valleys, where forested hills roll gently into quiet plains, ancient tombs rise like grassy mounds. These rounded silhouettes, serene and undisturbed, hold secrets of a once great kingdom. Zhangzhung, now a modest city, was once Silla's heart, a realm of gold, poetry, and silent disappearance. The kingdom of Silla, founded 1st millennium BC, flourishing until 10th century AD, was one of East Asia's longest dynasties. It transformed from a tribal confederation into a centralized monarchy, unifying most of the Korean peninsula. Its people crafted exquisite gold crowns, traded with Tang China, built temples shimmering with celestial intent. The capital, then Sirabiol, became a cultural religious center where Buddhist monks chanted under pagodas, philosophers debated the cosmos. Yet Silla's name is barely known beyond Korea, its legacy overshadowed, story fragmented. A civilization lasting over 1,000 years disappeared into history's folds with little fanfare. What happened? Clues lie in tombs and temples, native and foreign chronicles. From 6th to 8th centuries AD, Silla reached a golden age. Unification of three kingdoms, Goguryeo, Baekje, Silla, under Silla created a powerful state. Buddhism flourished, massive temple complexes like Hwangryongsa and Bulguksa rose. The famous Seokguram Grotto was carved, an artificial cave housing a granite Buddha, gazing with calm detachment. Trade and diplomacy linked Silla to the world. Envoys traveled to Tang Court, silk, ceramics, scrolls flowed, maritime routes carried Silla ships to Japan and beyond. Yet behind the splendor, cracks formed. By the 9th century, internal divisions grew. Aristocratic clans vied for influence. Peasant uprisings erupted. The central authority holding the kingdom together weakened. The royal court, once culturally brilliant, became a stage for factional intrigue. Still, collapse wasn't sudden. It was slow, quiet, like a receding tide. In 935 AD, after unrest and rebellion, Silla's last king formally abdicated, handing the throne to Goryeo, a rising power that unified Korea. Silla's final bow was dignified, almost graceful. No great war, mass destruction, the kingdom simply stepped aside. But the mystery deepens. Why did a kingdom so rich in culture and intellect fade so completely from regional spotlight? Why do so few capital ruins remain, so many temples lost? One explanation, its fall's nature. Unlike empires brought down by fire and invasion, Silla's end was administrative, a peaceful transfer. But peace can be erasure. In transition, monuments were repurposed or neglected, cultural memory rewritten under Goryeo. What was sacred became outdated, Silla's luminous image dimmed, not by violence, but forgetting. Others suggest a spiritual cause. Some historians, monks, point to deep Buddhist commitment, Maitreya tradition emphasizing a future messianic age. As Silla struggled, many believed the kingdom spiritually fell out of harmony. Its dissolution, not failure, but fulfillment, necessary return to balance before rebirth. Stranger theories exist. Local legends of hidden libraries, secret scrolls, knowledge buried with kings. Yongju tombs, some unexcavated, may hold texts illuminating Silla's twilight. Some suggest dynasty elites, fearing desecration, deliberately sealed history, not destroyed, but hidden, awaiting a safe time to remember. Then the tombs themselves. Unlike Egypt's grand pyramids or Aksum's towering stelae, Silla's mounds appear modest, grassy, round, quiet. But beneath lie wooden chambers filled with treasures, gilded belts, jade ornaments, gold inlaid swords, impossibly delicate ceramics. These objects speak not of decline, but pride, care, reverence. Why such opulence buried anonymously? Humility or a farewell? Today the old capital is quiet. Zhangzhung streets hum softly with modern life. But in early morning, when fog drifts low and tombs cast long shadows, it's easy to imagine the lost kingdom stirring beneath soil. Easy to believe Silla isn't gone, just resting, waiting to be understood. As we leave Silla's rounded hills and forgotten temples, one question lingers. How can a civilization lasting 1,000 years leave so few voices behind? And what might still lie hidden, waiting to tell its story? The Guanches, the last islanders. The Atlantic breeze moves through Tenerife's ravines like a whisper from another age. Above cliffs, volcanic peaks rise stark and silent, blackened slopes etched with time. Deep in highlands, hidden caves, and windswept plains hold last remnants of a people of uncertain origin, whose story ends not in fire but silence. They are the Guanches, ancient Canary Islands inhabitants, last known chapter of a civilization vanished into memory. Before 15th century European arrival, Canaries hosted distinct yet related cultures. Among them, Tenerife's Guanches stood out. Isolated in the vast Atlantic with no known open ocean navigation, they developed a society seemingly archaic yet advanced. They lived in caves, stone dwellings, practiced agriculture, animal husbandry, built sacred sites aligned with sun stars. They mummified dead with remarkably complex methods, drying bodies with volcanic ash, wrapping them in skins, placing them high in dry caves for centuries. But perhaps greatest mystery, how they got there. Canaries lie far from Africa, separated by rough seas, strong currents. Yet Guanches spoke language related to North African Berber dialects. Early European chroniclers described them as tall, often fair-skinned with light eyes, a description puzzling then and now. How did a Berber-speaking people reach such isolated archipelago without boats? Mainstream theory, ancestors arrived 1500 BC, possibly carried by early Phoenician, Carthaginian sailors who left settlers. Over centuries cut off, settlers adapted to rugged environment. As maritime knowledge faded, wood became scarce, seafaring lost. By European arrival, Guanches had no ships, island contact, or memory of arrival. But if history is isolation, it's also quiet brilliance. Guanches built step-like pyramids, some think ceremonial, developed whistled language, Silbo Gomero, carrying across mountains, ravines, understood land-sea rhythms, revered nature, sun, moon, ancestors, spirits. Then in decades they were gone. In 1400s, European explorers began the slow conquest. Castilian campaigns brutal, systematic, armed with steel, horses, diseases. Invaders overpowered Guanches, resisting bravely with stone weapons. Little unity. By 1496, last Guanche Tenerife stronghold fell. What followed? Not just conquest, but erasure. Language vanished within generation, rituals outlawed, survivors enslaved, assimilated, displaced. Bones once carefully preserved, unearthed, studied, forgotten. Little we know comes from conquerors' chronicles, family oral traditions, mummies, silent witnesses to a lost world. But why did distinct, enduring culture disappear so completely? Some historians argue collapse inevitable. Small population, limited resources, overwhelmed by technologically superior invader. Others suggest pre-contact decline due to inter-island rivalries, environmental strain, disease, yet full picture elusive. Archaeological evidence offers surprises. New findings suggest sophisticated astronomy knowledge. Others point to pre-Roman North Africa links yet to be explored. Then questions no one answers. Why do some burial sites suggest stratification, others egalitarian? True purpose of pyramids? Possible origin stories, memories encoded in mainland Berber tribes? More speculative theories abound. Some claim Guanches remnants of older, lost civilization, prehistoric maritime culture, survivors forgotten by history. Others suggest they preserved ancient knowledge fragments brought across sea before recorded exploration. Ideas controversial, unproven, but speak to deeper truth. Guanches left more questions than answers. Today, presence lingers in place names, museum collections, Canarian bloodlines tracing ancestry to vanished people. Winds through high caves carry no voices, but silence isn't empty. It waits, watches. What drove Zenata to these islands? What caused world to vanish? Not battle fire, but whisper. As we turn from Tenerife's volcanic ridges and continue through forgotten civilizations, one question remains. What else lies hidden on the map's edge, waiting to be remembered? The Tazmola. Steppe mysteries. Across central Kazakhstan's sweeping grasslands where wind rolls unhindered over open horizon, sky impossibly vast, lie strange stone arrangements. From air, unmistakable patterns, long rows, concentric circles, keyhole enclosures stretching across steppe like ancient messages carved into earth. These are Tazmola culture burial sites, a forgotten civilization once thriving in these silent plains, then vanished. Scattered over 300-plus locations, stone mounds, kurgans, mark resting places of people living 8th or 5th centuries BC. Named Tazmola from first identified site, legacy enigmatic, left no written records, surviving cities, presence undeniable, etched in stone, buried, preserved by land's stillness. Who were they? Tazmola were nomads, yet not just wanderers. Possessed refined astronomy, geometry understanding. Keyhole stone constructions often align with celestial bodies, particularly solstices, suggesting culture attuned to skies. Some mounds contain elite warriors buried with weapons, horse remains, precious ornaments. Others modest, hinting at stratified society with shared rituals. Craftsmanship subtle yet sophisticated. Artifacts from kurgans, bronze daggers, harness fittings, decorated ceramics, speak of culture at steppe-wash highlands crossroads, influenced by local tradition, wider Eurasian networks. Yet despite geographic reach, ceremonial complexity, they disappear quietly. Why? Mainstream archaeology. Tazmola culture evolved from earlier steppe societies, like Beshatir, Dandibe, merging into or overtaken by Saka, Scythian cultures dominating Central Asia. As larger nomadic confederations expanded, distinct Tazmola identity absorbed, customs diluted into broader mosaic. But if entire story, why Tazmola sites stand out sharply? Why alignment precision? Why ceremonial architecture consistency across distances? Some researchers, Tazmola, not just transitional culture, but independent, perhaps guardians of older, lost cosmology. Burial site alignment with celestial events, not coincidental. Reflects spiritual worldview, seeing land, sky as single interconnected domain. Sacred geography measured in stone, time. Others note significant settlement structure absence. Did Tazmola live in portable dwellings like yurts, leaving little behind? Or daily lives entwined with herds, nature rhythm, permanence, never goal? Perhaps monuments not for territory, but memory. Lack of written language deepens mystery. Without texts on inscriptions, interpret world through material remains, landscape patterns. Seeing burial grounds or complex ceremonial calendars, ancestral pathways, sky maps inscribed. More speculative voices go further. Some suggest patterns visible from above resemble ancient proto-writing or early astronomical phenomena recording. Controversial but intriguing. Could Tazmola develop symbolic system lost to time, reading heavens not in words but stones? Whispers in later Central Asian folklore. People spoke to stars, buried wisdom, hidden from misuse. Stories, not history, but reflect cultural memory of something powerful, absent. Then, horses. Many Tazmola burials place horses beside riders, sometimes with ornate bridles. Severed heads arranged ritually. Reverence for horse suggests more than practicality, hints at sacred bond, perhaps transformation belief through death. Believe spirits ride into afterlife. Horse, like stars, guide between worlds. Today, wind-swept steppe keeps secrets. Kurgans undisturbed in many places, unmarked by roads, untouched by cities. Satellite images reveal new alignments, questions, excavations careful, slow, ongoing, but Tasmola culture story largely unwritten. Who were sky watchers of steppe? Warriors, priests, astronomers, wanderers, all. As we leave long shadows of stone markers, journey through ancient history's forgotten corners, one question echoes across plains. If people could map stars with stones, disappear without trace, what else lost? Sleeping beneath grass, silence. The Tollens Valley culture, the battle nobody knows. Along narrow riverbanks in northern Germany, Tollens Valley today peaceful. Green fields, winding waters, soft wind hum. But beneath calm surface, landscape echoed battle chaos. Spears splintered, bones shattered. Hundreds, thousands of warriors clashed in possibly oldest known large-scale European battle. Yet no one knows who they were. Mystery of Tollens Valley culture. Discovered accidentally 1990s, seriously investigated decades after, Tollens battlefield reshaped understanding of Bronze Age Europe. Scattered human remains, fractured skulls, broken limbs, embedded arrowheads, turned up in riverbanks. Initially assumed small, isolated skirmish, but excavations revealed shocking truth. Hundreds of young men's remains, many violently killed, strewn across 2 kilometer valley stretch. Some struck by bronze arrows, others bore sword wounds. Blunt trauma. Horses found too, suggesting mounted warriors, wooden clubs, flint arrowheads, fine bronze weapons among bodies. Not local dispute, organized battle, perhaps war, but between whom? Site dates, 1250 BC, a time often thought fragmented, tribal in northern Europe. Image of Bronze Age societies, small scattered communities, modest farmers, herders, artisans. Tollens battlefield tells different story. Trained fighters in formation, supply lines, strategic coordination. Evidence suggests many from far beyond region, possibly hundreds of kilometers away. How such organized conflict erupt when no known states, kingdoms existed? Theories abound. Some suggest Tollens Valley key trade corridor linking Baltic to Central Europe. Control over route tension source, drawing rivals into violent confrontation. Amber, tin, bronze valuable. Perhaps battle for economic dominance, struggle for prehistoric economies, vital artery. Others point to broader context, increasing social complexity in Central Europe around this time. Elites rising, wealth concentrating, monumental burial mounds appearing. Was Tollens battle part of larger process? Birth pangs of European proto-states? Deeper questions. Who organized fighters? Who led? Defending something? Invading? What happened to people after? Strikingly, no large settlement traced near battlefield explaining conflict scale. No fortress, capital, central authority signs. No written records, names. Entire society emerged for battle, then vanished. Some researchers suggest battle part of lost cultural tradition. Tollens fighters belonged to mobile warrior class, bound not to territory but loyalty, custom, contract. May have moved between distant regions, hired for protection, conquest, allegiances hidden. More speculative ideas. Tollens represents collapse of unknown Northern European Bronze Age power, leaving no cities, inscriptions, but held sway through force, wealth, trade. If so, battlefield site of last stand. Forgotten war erasing cultural identity. Haunting possibility. Tollens not isolated, but one of many. Other battlefields hidden beneath forests, fields, unrecognized, unexplored. If true, prehistoric Europe map missing key chapters. Conflict, movement, transformation, shaping future. Tollens bones slowly revealing stories. Isotope analysis shows some dead grew up in distant regions, possibly southern Germany or further. Teeth, wounds, weapons, fragments of lives lived, but whole elusive. No one knows what flags followed, songs sung, what died defending. Tollens Valley remains Europe's great archaeological puzzle. Battlefield without war, culture without name, silence too vast to ignore. As we leave Tollens River's shadowed banks, continue search for ancient worlds lost to time, One question flows quietly. How many entire peoples, histories, vanished without word, except a single forgotten battle trace in mud? Meroe, Kingdom of the Black Pharaohs. As desert winds sweep across northern Sudan's golden sands, they uncover a forgotten world's fragments. Slender pyramid rows rising sharply against horizon, stones cracked, eroded by centuries of silence. This is Meroe, once capital of powerful kingdom flourishing along Nile. Today, royal tombs alone in desert, surrounded by ghosts of civilization ruling for nearly 1,000 years, then vanished. Kingdom of Meroe, also Kush, one of ancient Africa's great powers. Emerged 8th century BC after Napata decline, its northern predecessor, dominating vast region from Nile's first cataract deep into modern Sudan. For centuries rivaled Egypt's might, borrowing traditions but shaping them into distinct, unmistakably Meroitic forms. Meroe people built cities, palaces, temples adorned with reliefs of lion-headed gods, warriors in elaborate headdresses, developed written script, Meroitic alphabet, unlike any other in Africa, phonetic, elegant, used for religious administrative purposes, but to this day, largely undeciphered. And perhaps that's where mystery begins. Who were Meroites truly? What believed? What knowledge passed down in silent, unread, unspoken script? Archaeological evidence. Highly organized, culturally rich kingdom. Meroe Metallurgy Center, especially iron production. Fields of furnaces glowed, supplying tools, weapons, trade goods through Nile Valley. Kingdom maintained long-distance commerce with Egypt, Mediterranean, parts of sub-Saharan Africa. Elephants, gold, incense, ivory flowed through cities. Rulers, many queens or kandaki, not passive figureheads. Led armies, brokered treaties, governed with authority often surpassing male counterparts. Matrilineal legacy, rare in ancient world, set Meroe apart. Yet by 4th century AD, kingdom fallen, cities abandoned, language forgotten, monuments left to decay under desert sun. What happened? Historians offer theories. Environmental degradation, central role. Centuries of intensive iron smelting led to widespread deforestation around Meroe. Soil exhaustion, agricultural collapse. As land dried, population thinned, kingdom's internal strength crumbled. Others point to shifting trade routes. With Axum rise in Ethiopia, Mediterranean commerce changes. Meroe cut off from economic lifelines. Wealth diminished, power waned, rivals moved in. 350 AD, Axumite king Ezana claimed Meroe conquest. Inscriptions boast victory, city razing, fortress breaking. But no corresponding Meroitic records survive to tell other side. Absence telling. Unlike Egypt or Rome, Meroe left no expansive chronicle of greatness, no carved histories on temple walls, no great epics. What left? Script, symbols, tombs, speak in riddles. Meroitic language, hieroglyphic, cursive, defies full translation. Identify names, titles, recurring words, but grammar meaning voice lost. Could explanation for disappearance lie within unbroken codes? Famine, revolt, spiritual upheaval? Or did Meroe, facing decline, choose silence over spectacle, fading not in destruction but quiet resignation? Speculative theories rooted in silence. Some researchers wonder if Meroe, more than political kingdom, perhaps religious esoteric center. Pyramid alignment, artwork symbolism, language mystery suggest Meroe preserved traditions, shares knowledge older than Egypt, guarded, secret, now lost. Others look to candidate queens, power held. Was Meroe's social structure too different, too radical for neighbors? Could fall be conquest and erasure? Even today, large Meroe portions unexcavated. Beneath dunes, layered soil of bustling streets, lie temple, home, workshop ruins, unseen, unknown. Perhaps a library, scrolls turned to dust, held keys to Meroitic script. Perhaps walls still hold names. Names never heard, kings, queens, deeds yet to resurface. What we know, for centuries, Meroe culture, power, belief center. African kingdom advanced, proud as any ancient, then disappeared. As we step from slender pyramid shadows, continue journey through lost civilizations. One question buried in desert sands. If kingdom-forging iron, ruling queens, writing language could vanish completely, what else forgotten just beneath surface, waiting to be found? Nixtonchich, the Mayas' geometric city, amid Guatemala's Petén jungle, thick green, trees rising in ancient silence, canopy dripping with birdsong echo, lie ghostly outlines of unexpected, not towering temples like Tikal, jungle pyramids, lost causeways, but a grid, precise, deliberate geometric city plan etched into earth. This is Nixtonchich. Unlike other ancient Maya worlds, mystery refusing to settle into known patterns. From above, Nixtonchich's layout startling. Instead of organic sprawl of most Maya cities, settlement organized along strict east-west axis. Streets, avenues form near-perfect grid, oriented with obsessive regularity. Monumental architecture clustered not at heart, but west, perhaps deliberately placed to align with celestial events or emphasize spiritual center beyond geometry. Not accident, planned, controlled, designed. But who designed and why? Nixtonchich's dates. Circa 600, 300 BC, Middle Pre-Classic period, long before Classic Maya Golden Age. At height, significant urban center, possibly housing thousands. Large platforms, ceremonial buildings suggest not just town, but power place. Yet unlike later Maya cities, celebrating rulers with inscriptions, stelae, Nixtunchich silent. No names, known kings, grand monuments proclaiming divine descent. Most intriguing, no later city replicated design. Why? Maya, known for artistry, complex calendars, celestial alignments, typically built cities reflecting landscape, cosmos, hills, caves, rivers, sacred elements woven into urban spiritual geography. Cities grew in response to ritual needs, not rigid planning. Nixtunchich breaks entirely. Grid suggests control, uniformity, surveillance, experiment in centralized governance, society where rulers sought not just loyalty but order. People live by strict regulations, guided not only by belief, but imposed design. If so, why didn't it endure? Mainstream theories. Nixtunchich, rare phase of early state formation, short-lived attempt at consolidating power under central authority. Perhaps response to growing social complexity or external threats. Rulers sought unity through architecture, shaping behavior through space. But as later Maya cities rejected rigidity, embracing spatial fluidity, approach deemed unnatural, oppressive. Was Nixtunchich abandoned because failed to inspire devotion, lost touch with sacred landscape, or downfall violent, sudden? Archaeological layers suggest eventual decline. No catastrophic destruction evidence yet. Like many ancient places, faded rather than fallen, quietly losing influence. Plazas emptied, avenues swallowed by jungle. Then uniqueness question. Why no other Maya city planned this way? Why single grid at this time? Place. Some speculate outside influence. Layout resembles early Mesopotamian, Egyptian cities more than Mesoamerican neighbors. Long-forgotten contacts, cultural exchange via trade, migration, planted architectural idea in distant corner? Tantalizing thought, not yet solid evidence. Others wonder if Nixtunchich, ceremonial administrative capital of theocratic order, requiring discipline, conformity, structured environment. If so, disappearance signals collapse of order or ideals rejection. Stranger theories still, cities' rigid symmetry, lack of later imitation, led some to propose never meant as traditional city, but ceremonial blueprint, physical manifestation of cosmological map, earthly imitation of otherworldly vision. If true, residents were participants in greater ritual? What means vision never replicated? Today, Nixtunchich half-buried, symmetry visible only to those knowing where, how to look. No grand museums, visitor throngs walking grid, remains curious, overlooked ancient Maya puzzle. City without successors, plan without precedent, silence without explanation. As we step from Nixtunchich's geometric shadows, one question follows like wind rustle through tall grass. Was this city first glimpse of world Maya chose to leave? or last remnant of vision world unready to embrace? BMAC, the desert civilization, beneath Central Asia's sun-scorched plains, where desert brushes mountains, rivers run like veins through unforgiving landscape, world once thrived, barely remembered. At first glance, region desolate, empty. But beneath layers of sand, silence like crumbling city walls predating history. Heartland of Bactria Margiana Archaeological Complex, BMAC. Civilization of palaces, temples, mystery, rose in isolation, quietly vanished. Discovered 1970s by Victor Sarianidi, BMAC redefined Bronze Age, Central Asia. Stretching across Turkmenistan, northern Afghanistan, eastern Iran, southern Uzbekistan, flourished 2300–1700 BC. Core sites like Gonur-Depe, Dashli, Togalok, settlements fortified by thick mud brick walls containing ceremonial platforms, elaborate tombs, astonishing gold, lapis lazuli, carved stone artifacts. What makes BMAC extraordinary? Isolation. Cities not along Mesopotamia, Nile rivers. Built in desert middle, fed by mountain stream canals shaped by intelligence leaving no written trace. How complex advanced society emerge in arid zone? How fade so completely, unknown until 50 years ago? BMAC settlement architecture tells much. Gonur-Depe Central Complex built around large ceremonial structure, some interpret as temple palace. Storage, workshops, water reservoirs, living quarters surround in meticulously organized layout. Fire altars, strange stone vessels, burial goods suggest highly ritualized culture. Objects found, Indus Valley shell ornaments, Mesopotamian cylinder seals, polished metal mirrors indicate trade influence network far beyond sands. Connections clear, identity not. BMAC people left no texts, language, religion, social structure, speculative. Some scholars believe early Indo-Iranian spoken, others unique cultural group absorbed, displaced by steppe migrants. No city names, ruler records, only broken walls, silent graves. Yet something powerful thrived. Archaeologists uncovered evidence of long-distance trade. BMAC goods found in Indus Valley, Elam, Mesopotamia. Not closed culture, open, active, connected. Some propose BMAC missing link between Near East great civilizations, South Asia emerging cultures. If true, what went wrong? Mainstream explanation. Environmental decline. Canal feeding rivers shifted dried. Without water, agriculture collapsed, trade dwindled, populations scattered. Civilization on delicate hydrology balance withered as land changed. Unlike other ancient cities, BMAC sites show no clear invasion, destruction signs. Decline gradual, almost deliberate. Could BMAC society undergo internal transformation? People over generations moved into smaller, mobile groups, abandoning urban model, or merge with northern steppe populations, different ways of life, gods, needs. Theories, some controversial, suggest BMAC elite priestly caste conducting rituals influencing later Zoroastrian Vedic traditions. Fire altars, sacred enclosures, purity emphasis, echo belief systems emerging after BMAC disappeared. Could culture pass knowledge not through monuments, but oral traditions absorbed by others? More speculative voices raise deeper questions. Why BMAC appears suddenly, fully formed? Truly local development? Or transplanted tradition by forgotten seafarers, she migrants whose homelands lost to time? Why artifacts bear traces of other civilizations, yet distinct, unmistakable style? Perhaps most haunting, emptiness left behind. BMAC collapsed, left no successor state, cultural heir. Cities fell silent, roads vanished, language died with last speakers. Today, wind moves through Gonur-Depe, Dashli ruins, brushing sun-baked bricks, half-buried walls. Altars cold, canals dry, yet something lingers. Presence, question, world just out of reach. As we leave Central Asia's forgotten temples, move deeper into ancient unknown, one question follows like shadow across steppe. How many worlds like BMAC flourished in silence, buried by sands they turned to life? The Nuragic civilization, towers of stone. In Sardinia's windswept hills where olive trees twist in ancient silence, Rocky outcrops rise like sleeping giants. Stone towers pierce landscape, timeless, brooding, enigmatic. These are nuragi, great conical fortresses of rough-hewn stone, some 20 amish high, built without mortar, still defying centuries. Most visible remnants of Nuragic civilization, culture flourishing on Mediterranean island. Millennium, then swallowed by sea breeze, vanished. Nuragic civilization oldest, most mysterious prehistoric European cultures. Emerging, 1800 BC Bronze Age, continuing 500 BC, left no written records, known language, epic inscriptions, yet what left striking? 7,000 Nuragi landscape. Massive towers often surrounded by villages, sanctuaries, megalithic temples, tombs carved into stone, structures not isolated. Many Nuragi positioned across sightlines, forming network, possibly communication, defense, ritual. Some single towers, others complexes with levels, spiral staircases, courtyards, wells deep in rock. Hint at society of extraordinary organizational skill, architectural prowess, enduring mystery. But who Nuragic people? Archaeological finds, bronze statuettes, decorated ceramics, weapons, jewelry, suggest hierarchical society led by chieftains, priest-kings, deeply connected to ritual, warfare. Bronze figurines depict warriors, archers, divine beings, rendered with symbolic precision. Stone circles. Sacred wells speak to spiritual life linked to nature cycles, celestial observation. Yet for richness, origins uncertain. Did Nuragic culture evolve from earlier Sardinian Neolithic peoples? Or part of broader Bronze Age seafaring cultures wave across Mediterranean? Architecture no clear parallel. Customs, hints of Mycenaean, Cycladic influence, distinct, intensely local. Most perplexing, how long endured, 1,000 years, left so little trace beyond stone, metal. Then around end of first millennium BC, Nuragic world fades. Towers no longer maintained, settlements shrink, culture disappears from record. Why? Mainstream theories suggest gradual decline due to shifting Mediterranean power dynamics. By 9th or 8th centuries BC, Sardinia increasingly drawn into Phoenician, Carthaginian, later Roman orbits. Trade shifted, new political systems rooted. Nuragic people absorbed, distinct culture diluted until only stone remained. Theory leaves gaps. Why Nuragic elite vanished completely? Why towers abandoned, not repurposed? Why no transitional phase adaptation evidence, only disappearance? Some researchers propose internal causes, resource depletion, drought, conflict. Sardinia's rugged terrain made large-scale agriculture difficult. Political fragmentation, unrest, weakened cohesion. Towers, once unity power symbols, became relics of disordered past. Yet more speculative suggestions. Some believe Nuragic people retreated from coastal areas as foreign powers arrived. Not defeat but resistance, preserving life inland. Others point to bronze figurine, temple complex craftsmanship, suggesting elite priesthood deliberately dissolved institutions, perhaps response to changing cosmological beliefs, external pressures. More fringe theories. Sheer uniqueness of Nuragi. Why built with scale, effort, numbers? Only fortresses or astronomical purposes, solstice, equinox, markers, structures like Nurage, Santu Antine, Sunuraxi appear oriented to celestial events. If so, civilization governed not just seasons, but stars, changes in cosmic order, real perceived, roll and decline. Even today, Nuragic people strangely absent from successor cultures' mythologies. Romans encountered ruins, said little of builders. Sardinian folklore vaguely speaks of gigantes, giants roaming island, raising towers, moving stones, echoes of too distant cultural memory. Nuragic civilization left no words. Conquest on decline chronicles, only stone towers, bronze warriors, haunting silence of people whose world built to last, yet didn't. As we move beyond Sardinia's stone sentinels, continue through forgotten civilizations, one question rises. What world builds monuments meant to endure, then walks away without trace? Guayabo, Costa Rica's forest city, High in Costa Rica's central highlands, misty foothills, dense cloud forests breathe in silence. Vines curl over moss-covered stone, a place few heard of. Many walk past unknowingly. Guayabo, name whispered through trees, etched into volcanic rock, buried beneath centuries of soil. Here, among towering ceiba trees, tangled roots, forgotten foundations of lost city stand. Round stone platforms, ceremonial causeways, aqueducts still channeling water. Remnants of culture once thrived, disappeared without trace. Guayabo, largest, most important pre-Columbian archaeological site in Costa Rica. Shrouded in obscurity, on Turrialba volcano slopes, site covers 200 hectares, small fraction excavated. Revealed remarkable, stone-paved roads through forest, drainage, Chash aqueduct systems still functioning in rainy season, demonstrate advanced engineering, shock hydraulic design. Massive circular platforms of river stones once held wooden structures, homes, temples, communal buildings. Intricately carved petroglyphs, spirals, animals, abstract symbols, peek from moss, trying to speak across time. But who built? Why leave? Carbon dating. Guayabo inhabited 1000 BC, peaked 600, 900 AD. Supported few thousand people. Complex society, agriculture, trade, religious practice. Strategic location, fertile soil, fresh water, view across land. From here, leaders controlled movement, communication across central Costa Rica, yet by 1400 AD, abandoned. Long before Spanish arrived, wrote name, rulers, gods, mainstream explanations, quiet decline, environmental shifts, soil exhaustion, internal conflict. Some believe community relocated, dispersed into smaller, sustainable settlements deeper in jungle coast. But destruction, absence telling. No warfare, invasion evidence. Burned structures, mass graves. City left with intention, ritually perhaps. Slowly, as if people knew time to go. Why? Volcanic activity possibility. Guayabo in Turrialba's shadow, volcano known for eruptions. People interpreted earth rumblings as warnings, read nature signs, land turned sacred, dangerous. Others point to site's enigmatic nature. Petroglyphs, jaguars, crocodiles, spirals representing water, cosmology, undeciphered symbols. Guayabo more than city, ceremonial center abandoned, once spiritual purpose fulfilled. More speculative theories, connections to wider pre-Columbian networks. Some archaeologists believe Guayabo part of cultural sphere into northern South Central America, unrecorded mosaic of shared beliefs, trade. City decline linked to broader regional shift, not fully understood. Then architecture. Raised stone mounds, perfectly circular, built with precision, unlike other Mesoamerica. Design mirrored cosmological concepts, circles representing time's cyclical nature, sun, eternal flow. Roads, some connecting far beyond sight, suggest not isolation, but integration. Links to peoples, places, untold stories, yet no inscriptions found. No names, kings, gods. Silence haunting, city built with care, stone water mastery, left no voice, only wind murmur through leaves, water drip through still working aqueducts, occasional bird call echoing. Society valued oral tradition over written, past knowledge stories until migration, disaster severed chain? Or Guayabo, one of many centers from culture history never recorded, never conquered, chronicled, chance to endure beyond forest walls ungiven. Today, jungle reclaims heart of people. Vines twist around ancient roads. Platforms sink slowly. Sight endures. Sacred space to some, open question to others. As we leave moss-covered stones, spiraling symbols, continue journey through vanished human civilization footprints, one question lingers beneath canopy. If entire city vanish under trees, name, people, purpose lost, how many more out there, waiting to be found? Marib, the dam in the desert. In Yemen's vast desert emptiness, shifting sands bury stories. Time moves slowly under relentless sun. Stone wall, tom broken pillar remains rise from dust. Landscape dry, silent. But long ago, flourishing civilization center, oasis of wealth, ingenuity, power. This was Marib, ancient capital of Kingdom of Saba. Somewhere amid forgotten ruins lies history's great unanswered questions. How could cities so rich, well-engineered, central to trade simply disappear? Marib not myth, real, remarkable. Mentioned in ancient inscriptions, biblical texts, heart of Sabaean kingdom, flourished South Arabia 1000 BC to 1st centuries AD. Sabaean built sophisticated, enduring society, rooted in trade, agriculture, monumental architecture. Center of it all, Great Marib Dam, ancient world engineering marvel. Dam no small feat, stretching washes at 600 millers between hills, captured, channeled seasonal rains into intricate irrigation canals network. Waters turned surrounding land, now barren plain, into fertile fields. Wheat, barley, date palms, frankincense flourished, so did city. Marib became vital stop along incense route, trade network connecting Arabia to Egypt, Levant, Mesopotamia, beyond. Caravans loaded with spices, myrrh, gold, silk passed through. Inscriptions in Sabaean script speak of kings, temples, alliances, rituals. Land of commerce, devotion. But despite wealth, stability, civilization building, Marib slowly faded, reasons uncertain. Traditional accounts, some ancient legends suggest natural disaster. Islamic texts, local oral traditions. Great Marib Dam failure marked end. Flood, sudden, devastating, swept land, destroyed agriculture, scattered population. Dam repaired multiple times, may have collapsed 6th century AD. Archaeological evidence. Complex story. Dam suffered damage, seems maintained, functional generations. Some scholars decline more gradual. Silt buildup, rainfall changes, political authority weakening. Without coordination, minor system break led to widespread agricultural failure. Crops withered, trade slowed, people left, not panic but stability search elsewhere. Still, others suggest external pressures role. 1st centuries AD, Marib's trade hub importance faded. New maritime routes bypassed overland incense roads. Powerful neighbors, Himyarites, eventually Aksumite Empire, exerted control. Political alliances shifted, Marib's influence waned. But what makes Marib's story more mysterious? What's missing? No great chronicles, dramatic inscriptions marking end. No widespread war, destruction evidence. Temples fell silent, water stopped flowing, sand slowly covered what remained. Was Marib abandoned by slow unraveling of trade, infrastructure, leadership? Or something deeper, enigmatic, led to quiet disappearance? Speculative voices wondered if Marib's spiritual role part of downfall. Sabaean worshipped deities like Almaka, moon god, built large sanctuaries. Culture revolved around balance between religious observance, political power, decline of belief systems, shift in identity, early Christianity-Islam contact, weakened kingdoms unifying force. Others draw attention to uncanny astronomical alignment, precision, temple symbolism, enduring silence around fall. Watching stars for guidance, interpreted signs, celestial or otherwise, as reason to leave. Questions with few answers, only scattered fragments in dust. Then, Great Dam, even in ruins, imposing. Massive stones fitted without mortar still hold water memory. Remnants of sluice gates, channels speak of time when knowledge not survival shaped land. Dam source of life or hubris? Final collapse metaphor or warning, even greatest achievements fall to time, neglect. Today, modern Marib stands near ancient site, but ruins largely unexplored. Political instability, harsh terrain kept buried history hidden. Yet those who walked ruined streets speak of haunting stillness, old world lingering in stones. As we leave crumbled walls, dry canals, journey to other lost civilizations, one question rises from silence. If empire of water, stone, vanish into desert, memory in fragments, how much more lost before we remember to look back? Getty, Swahili city in the forest. Deep in Kenya's coast tangled forests, giant baobabs stretched gnarled limbs skyward, air heavy with salt and soil scent. Lie quiet remnants of once thriving city. Crumbling coral walls emerge from dense green. Arched doorways open into empty courtyards. Tall stone pillar watches over all, weathered by centuries of sun, silence. This is Gedi, ancient Swahili city lost to time. Stone shadow place, origins uncertain, disappearance still whispers across coastal breeze. Gedi ruins, also Gedi, few kilometers inland from Indian Ocean near Malindi. Today remote, isolated, almost forgotten. But centuries ago, sophisticated urban center active 12th and 17th centuries AD. Built primarily from coral stone harvested from sea, structures reveal people skilled in architecture, trade, ritual. City well-planned streets, residential compounds, palaces, grand mosque, indoor plumbing. Some houses, bathrooms, drainage centuries ahead of many world parts. Then suddenly, gone. What makes Gedi compelling? Not just preservation, but paradox. No small primitive village, flourished with urban elegance. Chinese porcelain, Persian glass, Indian beads found, evidence of trade network spanning continents. Gedi part of broader Swahili coast culture, maritime civilization linking East Africa to Middle East, India, beyond. But Gedi different, stands inland, surrounded by forest, not easily visible from sea. Retreat, stronghold, or thriving inland market town, part of Swahili city-state's web? Central question, why did people leave? Archaeologists, historians puzzled over abandonment. No war fire record, plague, natural disaster signs. Buildings not violently destroyed, but left in place. Untouched, uninhabited. Grand mosque intact. Tombs not defaced. City seems abandoned with care, perhaps reverence. One explanation, shifting trade routes. Indian Ocean maritime patterns evolved. Portuguese ships dominated 16th century. Inland cities like Gedi lost strategic commercial value. Traders moved elsewhere. Wealth followed. Cities' purpose withered. Others cite environmental change possibility. Regions' groundwater, managed through ancient wells, may have depleted. Changing climate or freshwater salinization made daily life difficult. Without reliable water, population forced to migrate. But theories unsatisfying. Why complete silence? Why no oral histories preserve Gedi's story? Why later generations forgot? Some speculate spiritual factors. Swahili coast, influenced by Islam since 10th century AD, maintained older pre-Islamic beliefs. Gedi associated with curse or sacred event? Local legends speak of spirits, jinn guarding city. Oral tales, uninvited entrants fall ill or lose way. Even today, ruins approached with respect, sometimes hesitation. Architectural mystery. Why finely crafted buildings with amenities, ornamentation, not replicated elsewhere inland? Why Gedi so advanced yet alone? Coral walls bear carvings. Doorways' precision stonework suggest unusual craftsmanship. Gedi benefited from visiting artisans, royal enclave or religious retreat hidden for protection. Burials near Grand Mosque, stone pillars, recessed niches, built with striking care. No inscriptions, names, dates, just structures, mute, eternal. Who laid to rest here? Priests, rulers, merchants. Objects left, imported ceramics, delicate jewelry, coins, ritual vessels, suggest prosperity, city alive with trade, ideas, wealth until suddenly wasn't. Some fringe theories propose distant causes. Disease by foreign ships, sudden droughts, regional Swahili urbanism collapse. Others hint at cultural transformation. Gedi's population merged with coastal groups, assimilated into port towns, or chose to leave for safety, opportunity. Today, Gedi rests beneath trees, watched by monkeys, wind rustle. Coral stones cool in shade, silence deep. Doesn't feel empty, feels suspended. Question waiting answer. As we step through ancient archways, continue journey across vanishing human civilization footprints, one thought lingers. How many cities like Gedi pulsed with life, trade, culture, swallowed by silence, leaving only birdsong, absence riddle. The Chachapoya, warriors of the clouds, High in northern Peru's cloud forests, green mist rolls through mountains like breath over forgotten stone. Moss hangs from trees like ancient veils, stand remnants of vanished people. Towering stone walls loom above steep cliffs. Circular buildings scattered across lush ridgelines, carved into rock faces, silent, hollow-eyed tombs of long gone. Realm of Chachapoya, so-called warriors of clouds, mysterious civilization flourished in Andean highlands, then mist-like disappeared. Chachapoya, not empire, but network of highland societies in rugged, rain-soaked region between Andes, Amazon basin. Terrain formidable, jagged cliffs, narrow plateaus, dense forests resisting exploration. Yet amid harsh conditions, Chachapoya constructed stone cities, monumental, striking in isolation. Most famous, Quelap, perched almost 3,000 meters above sea level, massive fortress-like complex enclosed by walls up to 20 meters high. Inside 400 circular structures, many once cone-roofed, adorned with limestone geometric friezes, climbing steep stone ramps, standing in misty confines, feel presence of people commanding world without conquering, through spectacle. Yet for grandeur, Kuelap, broader Chachapoya legacy unknown to outside world until recently. Chachapoya culture reached height 800 1470 AD, not Inca-like empire, formidable, resilient, organized, territorial. Spanish chroniclers describe them as tall, fair-skinned, independent. Homes, temples often built in places few dared settle, cliff edges, gorges, fog-drenched ridges, burial practices equally daring. Mummified corpses placed upright in sarcophagi on sheer cliff faces, unreachable without ropes, sheer ladders. But late 15th century Chachapoya, no longer independent, expanding Inca Empire launched campaign. Despite stiff resistance, Chachapoya conquered, absorbed into Incan state. Leaders displaced, people resettled across empire, cities like Quelap gradually emptied. Beginning of disappearance? Possibly. Incas, efficient administrators, often dismantled conquered power structures. Chachapoya elites removed. Religious centers reoriented, abandoned. Traditional ways interrupted. Over time, distinctive identity faded into larger imperial fabric. Not erased, but diluted. Then came Spanish. European arrival early 16th century brought Inca Empire collapse. Chaos to lands it ruled. Chachapoya, like many groups, rebelled against Inca, aided Spanish, but hope for autonomy short-lived. Spanish brought disease, exploitation, further dislocation. By 17th century, Chachapoya all but vanished from records. Only conquest chused disease and civilization? Some scholars think not. Territory remoteness, structures enduring strength, lack of written records suggest people also withdrew deliberately, spiritually from changing world, retreated deeper into cloud forests, merged into smaller hidden communities, preserved parts of culture still surviving unnamed in Andean highlands folkways. Archaeological discoveries challenge assumptions. New tombs found, filled with textiles, pottery, intricate funerary masks. Cave petroglyphs depict spirals, animals, possibly maps, mythologies we cannot read. Skeletal remains of Chachapoya mummies, remarkably preserved, suggest ritual practices hinting at complex beliefs about death, transformation, eternity. Cities built without wheels, temples without mortar. Architecture defies weather, time. How quarry transport massive stones across a vertical terrain? How survive, thrive among peaks where others built little? Why favor remote, inaccessible places, fleeing something or protecting? Some suggested Quelap on other sites, not just power centers, but sanctuaries, spiritual refugees aligned with stars, sacred landscapes, designed not for conquest but communion. If so, disappearance not simple defeat but transformation. Culture not collapsed but dissolved into environment. Even today, much Chachapoya territory unexcavated. Dense jungle hides unnamed ruins. Oral traditions speak of ancient roads, stone cities beneath vines, caves sealed against time. Local legends whisper Gentiles, ancient ones, still watch from cliffs. As we leave mist-shrouded Quelap walls, vertigo-inducing cloud forest tombs, one question echoes. What if Chachapoya never truly vanished, but simply learned how to disappear? The ancestral Puebloans, the cliff dwellers. High on southwestern Colorado's mesa, sandstone cliffs loom over arid canyons, silence ancient, alert, dwell ghostly remains of North America's captivating lost worlds. Nestled into rock face, beneath sheer cliffs overhangs, cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde, window rows cut into stone, towers rising from alcoves, ceremonial kivas sunken into earth like hidden hearts. Homes of ancestral Puebloans, people carved civilization into stone, then walked away. Cliff dwellings, not story beginning. For centuries prior, 7600 AD, ancestral Puebloans lived atop mesa in pit houses, above-ground pueblos, circular kivas, straight-walled rooms, structures aligned with sun. Over time, architecture more sophisticated. Towers rose, reservoirs built, trade routes stretched hundreds of miles. Late 1100s AD, something changed. Families began building into cliffs, excavating, shaping villages under rock shelters. Some settlements, Cliff Palace, Spruce Tree House, contained 100 rooms reached by ladders, handholds in stone. Protected from elements, cliff dwellings, remarkable condition today, haunting precision, scale. Late 1200s, just century later, empty. No one knows exactly why. 20,000 people once lived in Mesa Verde region. By 1300 AD, dwellings abandoned. Fires extinguished, ladders removed. Vibrant culture flourishing in canyons disappeared quietly, completely. What caused exodus? Archaeologists, converging factors. Prolonged drought, late 13th century, made farming, difficult in dry landscape, unsustainable. Depleted soil, limited water sources drove families to seek fertile ground. Evidence of growing conflict. Defensive architecture, hastily abandoned rooms. Cliff-dwelling construction itself, sheltered, hidden, difficult to reach, suggest community increasingly concerned with security. Under threat from neighbors or from within? Some believe internal tensions over resources, leadership, spiritual interpretation created fractures. Others propose departure-coordinated migration, not collapse. Journey guided by ceremony, vision, not fear. Still, mystery remains. Why leave well-built homes? Why seal kivas, clean rooms, extinguish sacred fires with reverence if hasty escape? Why little evidence of destination? Ancestral Puebloans did not vanish. Descendants live among modern Hopi, Zuni, other Pueblo peoples. Oral traditions speak of migrations guided by spiritual signs, sacred directions, land obligations. Stories tell of people not fallen but moved forward. Yet for insights, Mesa Verde's silence profound. No inscriptions left, written records, final message carved in stone, only empty rooms, soot-blackened ceilings, quiet precision of vanished world. Some theorists look deeper into architecture's celestial alignments. Many kivas precisely oriented with solstices, equinoxes, certain towers astronomical observatories, calendar disrupted by changing skies, cosmic event altered sacred time interpretation. Others noted society's intense ceremonial focus. Kiva, central to community, ritual, space for communion with ancestors, subterranean forces. Shift in spiritual belief or prophecy fulfillment triggered great migration. More speculative ideas hint at psychological, cultural thresholds. Moment when landscape no longer felt safe, sacred, balanced. Drought, hunger, spiritual uncertainty combined to create collective decision to leave everything, begin again. Still, no single theory answers all. Cliff dwellings remain, preserved in time, waiting for builders. Tools near hearths, corn cobs in storage, petroglyphs of spirals, animals, human forms on canyon walls, symbols whose full meanings faded. Today, sun sets over mesa, golden light spills across sandstone walls. Ruins cast long shadows across centuries of questions. Wind moves through empty doorways, ravens circle. Deep in canyons where voices echoed ceremony, song, silence reigns. As we continue exploration of civilizations disappeared, one question lingers in dry desert air. What does it mean to leave not in defeat but decision? What knowledge guided Mesa Verde people turning backs on stone, walking into unknown? The Nok culture, terracotta enigma. Beneath central Nigeria's red soils, rolling savannas, where Harmattan wind sweeps dry across open plains, buried legacy waited silently for centuries. Began with fragment, terracotta face unearthed by chance, solemn expression, hollow eyes, elongated head framed by intricate braids. Nothing like it in sub-Saharan Africa marked rediscovery of continent's mysterious lost cultures. This was Nok, ancient civilization of astonishing artistry, unknown origin. Nok culture, named from small village where first artifacts found 1920s, story-shaped 1940s. Tin mine workers stumbled upon wealth of terracotta sculptures buried deep. Human figures, naturalistic, abstract, emerged from earth. Some stood hands folded, others sat exaggerated postures, stared with piercing stylized features. Beautiful, sophisticated, old. Radiocarbon dating, earliest artifacts, 1500 BC. Culture lasted Palmer 2 millennia before vanishing Mashi 300 AD. For long-lived advanced society, Nok left no known written language. Palaces, temples, tombs, stelae with kings, sun gods. Only remarkable sculptures, more questions than answers. Who were Nok people? How developed artistic skill in isolation? Why fade into obscurity, forgotten 1,000 years? Beyond terracotta figures, Nok believed among earliest sub-Saharan iron smelters. Iron tools, furnaces discovered near settlements, indicating technological innovation when much region Neolithic. Agriculture organized. Yam, millet, cowpea cultivation evidence suggests stable food producers likely traded with neighbors, but no large cities found, administrative centers. As if Nok dispersed but culturally unified network, tied not by empire but belief, custom, artistry. When disappeared, left no known successor. Mainstream theories, environmental change role. Climate shift disrupted agriculture, depleted resources, forced communities to abandon settlements. Some archaeologists, gradual migration. Nok populations absorbed into rising West Africa cultures, carrying knowledge fragments, eventually indistinguishable. Still, timeline unclear. No conquest signs, mass burials, cataclysm. Sculptures stop appearing, furnaces go cold, fields silent. Mystery deepens. Why culture capable of expressive, technically challenging terracotta work, meter-tall pieces, leave so little else? Why no inscriptions, grand monuments, burial complexes matching spiritual depth? Some scholars propose sculptures, religious ceremonial objects used in ancestor worship, fertility rites, spiritual initiation. Stylized features, exaggerated proportions, deliberate postures suggest symbolic meaning. Meant to embody deities, spirits, guard dead. Few statues feature individuals wearing regalia, headdresses, bracelets, ceremonial garb. Others depict bound, restrained figures, prompting speculation about judicial rituals, punishment, offerings. Without texts, only guess. More speculative theories. Nok center of wider, older tradition extending far beyond modern Nigeria. Similarities in style technique noted between Nok terracottas and later Yoruba, Benin art. Possible Nok formed cultural bedrock of West Africa's future kingdoms? Ideas endured, name lost. Others ask broader questions. How sophisticated artistic tradition arise so early, in relative isolation? Nok contact with trans-Saharan trade networks long before believed. Influence reach further than currently understand? Problem, access. Many original Noks removed from context by miners, looters, leaving archaeologists without crucial evidence layers. Settlements remain buried, undiscovered beneath fields, hills. Without large-scale, long-term excavation, Nok story partially told, half whispered, half imagined. Today, sculptures in museums, private collections worldwide. Haunting expressions captivate those gazing into hollow eyes. Yet people behind them, what believed, how lived, Why vanished? Elusive. Central Nigeria soil holds secrets. Scattered shards beneath baobab roots. Ancient furnaces rust. Somewhere deep in earth, structure, stone, clue bringing story closer. As we leave haunting knock faces, continue journey through forgotten world's echoes, one quiet question remains. When civilization disappears, but art remains, what does art still know we have yet to remember? The Chiribaya, weavers of the desert. In southern Peru, northern Chile, arid coastal valleys, Atacama Desert meets sea, land breathes only in silence, traces of vanished civilization buried beneath sand. Among dry riverbeds, windswept dunes, woven textile fragments, llama bones, sun-bleached ceramic jars offer whisper of life once thrived in unforgiving place. World of Chiribaya, ancient culture carved order, abundance from driest landscape, then quietly disappeared. Chiribaya culture emerged, just 900 AD, endured for 5 centuries. Occupied river valleys from southern Peru into northern Chile. Thin fertility ribbons bordered by desert, ocean. Not warriors, empire builders, but agriculturists, herders, master weavers. Settlements small, organized, enduring. Built terrace farms, developed sophisticated irrigation, raised camelids, llamas, alpacas, essential for transport, meat, wool, ritual. Most striking, textiles. Graves preserved by dry climate, Chiribaya clothing survived astonishing color, intricacy. Tunics, belts woven in geometric patterns, dyed in hues still radiating after 1,000 years. Garments speak to artistic excellence, cultural identity, social status, spiritual expression. Yet for world subtlety, resilience, Chiribaya gone by 15th century. What happened? Archaeological evidence suggests slow decline. Unlike violent conquests ending other civilizations, no sign Chiribaya destroyed in single event. Settlements not burned, cemeteries not desecrated, seem to have stopped building, weaving, appearing. Prevailing theory, absorbed by expanding Inca Empire. Mid-1400s, Inca reached far into southern Peru, northern Chile, integrating regional cultures. Local leaders co-opted, villages reorganized, identities gradually transformed under new imperial structure. Chiribaya, in this view, didn't vanish, dissolved into something larger. Explanation leaves gaps. Why leave little voice in Inca record? If people absorbed, why few Chiribaya customs, names, gods survive in oral traditions? Some researchers propose environmental pressures role. Region vulnerable to rainfall, river flow shifts, prolonged drought or destructive El Niño event devastated agriculture. Disrupted water sources forced communities to relocate. Coastal erosion, canal siltation, llama herd disease crippled economy. Others point to social dynamics. Trade patterns changed, political landscapes shifted, thriving Chiribaya valleys lost centrality. No large military, urban strongholds, written system to preserve memory, culture faded quietly, invisibly, like tide pulling from shore. Yet hints of something complex remain in cemeteries. Chiribaya burials remarkably consistent, carefully arranged, bodies placed seated, flexed, wrapped in textiles, layers with pottery, tools, food, small animals' offerings. Burials suggest deep respect for dead, belief in continuity between living, afterlife. Graves include miniature models, tiny llamas, farming tools, houses, tokens for next world or symbolic representations of life well lived. Most striking, order, uniformity, silence. No sudden panic, mass flight, cultural rupture evidence. People did not abandon traditions in haste, completed rituals, buried dead, then stopped. Deliberate ending, cultural transition enacted with ceremony, foresight, as seen in other Andean societies, or slow erosion of autonomy, memory, people's place. Speculative thread. Chiribaya not merely absorbed, displaced, but retreated, leaving only what meant to remain. Some scholars propose elite lineages withdrew inland, higher into Andes, preserving customs under new names. Traces of Chiribaya identity survive in communities whose roots mislabeled, overlooked, even name not original, assigned by modern archaeologists from local term. What Chiribaya called themselves believed, stories told under desert stars, unknown. Still, desert remembers, sunken walls of ancient canals, dyed thread fragments preserved in dry earth, silent cemeteries where dead still sit, wrapped in cloth, surrounded by vessels once filled with corn, fish, water. Today, winds sweeping through southern Peru valleys carry more than dust. Carry breath of people lived in harmony with world's harshest landscapes, left legacy of balance, resilience, quiet disappearance. As we turn from Chiribaya forgotten graves, continue into ancient world shadows, one question rises with wind. What does it mean for civilization to vanish not in flames, but stillness? How much can we learn from those who chose to leave without a word? The Kasarabi culture, reshaping the Amazon. In Bolivian Amazon's lowland plains, thick forests stretch across river, wetland, savanna patchwork. Forgotten civilization-shaped land with intelligence vast, invisible. Beneath canopy, jungle swallow sound, light, lie buried, city remains. Causeway grids, canals, monumental platforms, centuries mistaken for natural terrain rises. Legacy of Kasarabi culture, lost world sculpted environment with subtle grandeur, disappeared into undergrowth, leaving almost no trace. Only recently, full Kasarabi society outlines begun to reemerge. Decades archaeologists suspected more to Llanos de Mojos region than met eye. Early 21st century, LIDAR scanning from aircraft, true scale clear. Beneath dense vegetation, researchers uncovered vast urban networks, sprawling settlements interconnected by raised roads, water channels, reservoirs, geometric mounds. Scale astonishing. Unlike Andes stone empires, Kasarabi built with earth, vision. Didn't carve mountains, reshaped floodplains. 500 AD to 1400 AD, engineered landscape size of modern cities. Some settlements, 300 hectares, anchored by platform mounds rising up to 20 meters, surrounded by concentric defensive structures. Not isolated villages, urban centers planned, hydrologically optimized, culturally complex. Then gone. Who were builders of Amazon's hidden cities? How organized? Why culture fade into silence? Kasarabi people elusive. Little known about language, rulers, beliefs. No written records, stelae, codices survive. Construction scale, precision suggest organized society coordinating labor, managing water, sustaining large populations in seasonally flooded environment. Economy, agriculture, fishing, careful manipulation of wetlands. Raised fields, dikes, canals transform floodplains into productive zones. Massive causeways stretch perfectly straight for kilometers, connecting settlements across impassable terrain. Water reservoirs dug with exacting dimensions, for storage and possibly ritual. Civilization model doesn't fit conventional frameworks. No massive temples, imperial warfare, stone fortresses. Instead, civilization worked with landscape, not against. Despite achievements, Kasarabi left no direct descendants. Culture faded before Spanish arrival. European chroniclers entered region, cities already reclaimed by forest. Why? Environmental shifts theory. Llanos de Mojos delicate ecosystem prone to flooding, drought, changing climate, prolonged dry period, destructive floods, disrupted food production, forced migration, triggered internal instability. Another possibility, disease. Before Spanish arrived in full force, diseases like smallpox spread ahead of contact, devastating populations, collapsing complex societies. Explanations plausible, but don't fully account for depth of silence left. Other Amazonian societies, diminished, survived into colonial memory. Why Kasarabi leave no oral tradition, name, legend among neighbors? Some researchers suggest Kasarabi society decentralized, less dependent on central authority, more reliant on local leadership, cooperation. External pressures mounted, networks unraveled quietly, without war, conquest. People dispersed into smaller communities, adapted, blended into broader Amazonian cultures. Even more speculative ideas. Cities, ceremonial, cosmological function, aligned with stars, built to mirror constellations, serve as living calendars? Some settlements exhibit strange geometric regularity, not just practical centers but sacred landscapes. Abandonment reflects not failure, but transformation, belief shift, cycle fulfillment. May never know. Yet facts such civilization existed, vast, organized, hidden, challenges assumptions about Amazon. For years believed rainforests couldn't support large societies. Kasarabe proved otherwise. Reimagine space our time on own terms, creating civilization without stone, empires, traditional monuments. Yet work endures silently in perfectly aligned causeways, swallowed by jungle. Raised mounds visible from air. Canals still catch rain centuries after makers disappeared. As we leave shadowy blue-green maps of Kasarabi cityscapes, press forward through fading ancient lives' echoes, one question lingers like fog over canopy. What other civilizations, vast, invisible, lie just beneath surface of what we know, waiting patiently to be seen again? Scylla's bone rank system, cast in stone. In rolling hills of Gyeongju, South Korea, royal tombs rise like sleeping giants, green mounds beneath which gold crowns, jade ornaments, ancient scrolls lay undisturbed for centuries. Burial sites of Scylla, East Asia's longest dynasties. Beneath quiet, grassy domes rest not just royalty, but echoes of society governed by rigid, mysterious social hierarchies ever devised. Bone rank system. Untrained eye, Scylla artifacts, delicate earrings, golden belts, carved swords, speak of splendor, ceremony. Beneath luxury surface, systems so strictly defined, status, marriage, clothing, career, architectural choices determined not by wealth, merit, but blood. Bone rank system divided Scylla society into hereditary strata, ingrained, unyielding. Top, sacred bone, status so rare few held it. Below, true bone rank, aristocratic families eligible for high office, royal marriage. Beneath, head ranks 6-1, own rights, restrictions, limitations. For most, ranks never change. Not merely class, caste, codified into law, belief, rooted in body, passed through generations. How system emerge? Why, after dominating Scylla life, disappear quietly? Origins difficult to trace. Some scholars evolved from tribal leadership structures solidified as kingdom expanded. Others, influenced by ancient animist beliefs where lineage, spiritual purity inseparable. Earliest written records referring to system appear centuries after establishment, leaving much speculation. Clear, system deeply integrated into governance. Only certain ranks served in court, wore specific colors, rode particular carriages, built homes with certain dimensions. Higher rank, greater privilege, perhaps greater isolation. Royal succession dictated by bone rank. King chosen only from sacred true bone lineages, often led to political deadlock. No eligible candidate, succession crisis. Scylla expanded, absorbed neighbors, Baekje, Goguryeo, integrating new elites into rigid structure increasingly difficult. Strangest aspects, little recorded resistance. Scylla people accept hierarchy as divine order, provided stability or suffocation. Some theorists, bone rank system endurance rested not on fear, force, but shared cosmology, worldview mirroring celestial order. Born into rank, inherit role, position in cosmic framework, change, rebellion, ambition beyond rank. See not just disloyalty, but harmony violation. Yet for longevity, system eventually faded. Late 9th century, cracks showing. Power struggles among true bone elites intensified. Ambitious families sought influence outside channels. Buddhist monastic institutions' rise offered alternative prestige learning. Regional lords, Hojok, accumulated military power. Central aristocracy authority eroded. Scylla dynasty collapsed 935 AD, yielding to Goryeo dynasty, bone rank system effectively vanished. New rulers, drawing on Scylla legacy, never reinstated. Once all-encompassing structure simply ended. Why? Some historians. System, effective in its time, victim of rigidity. Social mobility essential in rapidly changing world, Inflexible hierarchy couldn't meet governance, military, diplomacy demands. Others, internal contradictions, lack of successors, exclusion of talented individuals, undermined state. More speculative voices, system never as absolute as later records describe. Fluid in practice, symbolic code, not strict prison. Disappearance reflects not failure, but evolution, transition from metaphysical hierarchy to administrative pragmatism. Even today, bone rank system mechanics partially understood. Archaeologists uncover tombs, analyzing burial goods, skeletal remains for patterns, matching rank with artifact, lineage with power. Some tombs lavish, imported goods, intricate jewelry. Others modest, show ritual significance. Differences meaning, who decided? Who? No surviving Scylla documents defining rules. System boundaries, criteria, terminology reconstructed from later texts, compiled centuries after fall. Understanding incomplete, shaped by legend more than law. As we turn from Zhangzhung grassy tombs, continue through forgotten civilization's shadows, one quiet question remains. What world builds society not on conquest or coin, but birth marrow? What happens when bloodlines run dry? The Kalasha echoes in the Hindu Kush. High in Hindu Kush valleys, snow-capped peaks pierce sky. Glacial rivers run through steep gorges. Time moves differently. Wind carries voices from distant ages. Wooden shrines carved with animal motifs, crowned with goat horns, stand quietly in stone-walled villages. Here in remote northern Pakistan, Kalasha people, keepers of ancient tradition, guardians of story reaching back to forgotten kingdom, whose name, if any, no longer known. Kalasha often described as unique remnant of pre-Islamic Indo-European culture. Today number only few thousand, residing in isolated valleys Bumburay, Rumbur, Birir. Customs, language, beliefs radically different from surrounding region. Festivals follow sun, moon rhythms. Gods live in mountains, rivers. Women dress in black woolen robes adorned with shells, beads. Men sing songs echoing long journeys, distant wars, ancestral kings. But Kalasha, not living fossil, surviving echo of something larger. Once powerful, sovereign, kingdom perhaps, high in mountains lost to time. What happened? Historians, archaeologists debated Kalasha origin, ancient civilization believed descent from. Some trace roots to Indo-Aryan migrations, arriving mountains 3,000 years ago. Others, descendants of local culture predating written history, people whose beliefs, language, mythology reflect earliest Indo-Iranian world form. Still others suggest Alexander the Great army's connection. Kalasha themselves stories of fair-skinned ancestors, warrior lineages, foreign blood. Remnants of Macedonian army stayed behind, founding hybrid kingdom in inaccessible valleys. Greek theory largely set aside, persists partly because much unknown. Genetic studies show Kalasha distinct from neighbors, though not pure European origin. Linguistic ties link language to Dardic branch of Indo-Aryan tongues, but lineage complex, fragmented. More telling, religion. Kalasha pantheon striking resemblance to ancient Vedic, pre-Zoroastrian belief systems. Chief god Dezau, Skyfather. Ritual purity central. Seasonal festivals mark solstices, equinoxes, sacred groves kept untouched, animal sacrifices during key ceremonies. Practices once common in early Indo-European societies, now extinct around them. Cultural preservation suggests Kalasha didn't simply wander into valleys, once ruled them. Scattered archaeological remains, stone fortresses on inaccessible cliffs, ancient trails, ruined watchtowers hint at expansive past. Oral histories speak of lost valleys, forgotten allies, wars with distant empires. Kalasha, last survivors of Highland Kingdom, once extending far beyond current borders. If so, what caused fall? Geographic isolation possibility. Trade routes shifted, empires grew south, west, mountain kingdoms cut off economically, politically, culturally. Small local powers collapsed into fragmented communities. Lowland civilizations wrote histories, highland ones forgotten. Another theory, pressure from surrounding powers. Centuries invaders moved through region, Persians, Greeks, Scythians, Kushans, Turks, Mongols. Each new faiths, rulers, demands. Ancient Kalasha kingdom resisted too long? When fell, memory erased, intentionally or not. Others suggest natural disaster role. Earthquakes, floods, glacial shifts wiped out key settlements, forcing survivors deeper into mountains. Cut off, once unified tribes splintered into isolated valley communities, preserving fragments of older whole. More speculative voices asked if Kalasha kingdom never meant to last. Not political power, but spiritual refuge. Place built to remain hidden, deliberately remote. People chose seclusion over conquest, measured greatness not in cities, armies, but ritual, continuity. Whatever truth, ancient Kalasha kingdom, if existed, left few physical traces. No grand temples, royal tombs, written records. Yet presence lingers in chants sung under starlight. Wooden effigies carved for forgotten deities. Drum rhythm during solstice festivals predating Valley's monsoon calendars. Kalasha remained fragile, proud, enduring. Living mystery nestled in Hindu Kush folds. Last voice perhaps of vanished world once spoke across mountains with clarity, power. As we turn from narrow stone-lined paths, continue search for civilizations lost to silence, one question remains like fading echo among peaks. If Kalasha, last light of ancient kingdom, what deeper fire once burned? Why did world allow it to go dark? Punt, land of the gods along, Nile banks carved into temple walls, faded limestone reliefs, story of land exotic, elusive. Place ancient Egyptians called Tanecher, land of gods. Incense trees bloomed in sacred groves. Strange animals wandered shaded glades. Gold, ebony resins flowed from distant shores into Thebes' Karnak temples. This was Punt, kingdom whispered about in hieroglyphs, depicted in murals, never found. Land once real, now lost in time. Earliest Punt references 5th Dynasty Egypt, 2500 BC. Texts describe it as trade partner, not war rival. Expeditions launched by pharaohs, priesthoods, not to conquer but acquire myrrh, frankincense, electrum, leopard skins, baboons, even live trees for temple gardens. Reign of Queen Hatshepsut, Punt expedition celebrated, immortalized in stone at Mortuary Temple in Deir el-Bahari. Walls, vivid scenes, ships laden with cargo, delegates greeted by Puntite rulers, queen with distinctive features, houses on stilts shaded by palms. Imagery rich, land itself unfound. Where was Punt? Scholars propose theories. Some place it along Horn of Africa, Eritrea, Somalia, citing botanical matches, animal distributions, linguistic clues. Others point to southern Arabia, where frankincense trees grow, trade routes flourished. Few suggest Nubia or Sudan. No consensus. Punt geography, shifting shadow, location buried beneath trade, memory, time. Why important trading partner, considered sacred by Egyptian priests, disappear completely? Punt never single kingdom, possibility, confederation of coastal polities united only in Egyptian imagination. Punt disappearance not collapse but gradual fading as independent ports declined. Trade shifted northward, Egypt turned attention elsewhere. Without monumental cities, enduring stone architecture, Punt slipped beneath history waves, absorbed into new cultures, renamed by new rulers. Others propose fall tied to climate. Monsoon pattern shifts, once fertile lands desiccation, rising sea levels disrupted agriculture, seaborne trade. Region survival depended on delicate environmental balance. Even minor changes dismantle economies, scatter populations. Yet deeper mysteries remain. Why no surviving Puntite texts? No stelae, inscriptions, burial mounds proclaiming kings' names? If Punt wealthy enough to trade with powerful empire, where its own legacy? Literate society whose records destroyed? Or writing never part of tradition? Some archaeologists believe Punt remnants already discovered but unrecognized. Scattered pottery fragments, burial sites, seaports yet to be definitively linked to Egyptian narratives. Excavations along Red Sea coast, interior highlands offer tantalizing glimpses. Incense altars, obsidian tools, ancient harbor walls, but none bear unmistakable signature. This was Punt. More speculative voices go further. Punt, sacred realm, not just economic but religious geography. For Egyptians, land of gods, origin of incense, divine smells, sacred animals, spiritual purity. Not merely kingdom, but mythologized space, part real, part imagined, memory merged with Egyptian cosmology, or perhaps Punt deliberately hidden. Few theorists suggest secrecy surrounding Punt intentional. Egypt, valuing rare sacred imports, obscured location to prevent rivals. Absence of Punt in other records, not coincidence but strategy. Veil drawn across a treasured route. Even images at Deir el-Bahari offer clues, contradictions. Puntite queen depiction, notably different appearance, endless debate. Simply artistic exaggeration or specific ethnic group features? Houses on stilts, coastal swamp, or symbolic realm beyond known world? Still, theories notwithstanding, truth buried. Punt, if existed as centralized state, lost not to war, disaster, but obscurity. Place of trees, scents, windborne sails, preserved not in ruins but memory. Name survived through Egyptians alone. Nile's power waned, so too world's last link to Punt. Today, search not for city but silence. Follow trade winds, temple carvings, trace routes through deserts, across seas. Listen to absence, mystery, places where maps still say unknown. As we move from Deir el-Bahari, sacred ships, forgotten voyages, incense-laden wind, one final question rises like smoke from distant altar. If Punt real and Egyptians knew ports, Shah palaces, how could kingdom so cherished by gods disappear without single word of its fate?